He was just a regular jock with dreams of having the biggest muscles in the world, until one 10-ton barbell sent him to isekai. Now he has the unique skill of seeing protein in any creature. Every chicken is an enemy, every monster is lunch, every breast is a path to power. He is not a hero, he's a system bodybuilder. He chews, swings, and breaks the logic of the new world. This is the story of how protein craving can become a superpower. Meet Yu Hansel, protein eater and king of squats. Commentators are ecstatic. Yu Hansel, the muscle-obsessed athlete, challenges the 10-ton barbell. He clenches his teeth, his leg pressing hard into the floor, preparing for an incredible effort. The athlete is focused, his hands gripping the bar of a huge barbell with a death grip. Yu Hansel's eyes flash with energy, his face distorted with extreme tension. With a wild cry, he lifts the weight off the ground, the barbell bending under the monstrous load. The host yells out, "Yu Hansel lifted the weight, becoming the strongest being, surpassing humanity." Suddenly, a blinding flash interrupts the triumph, foreshadowing something bad. Yu Hansel is thrown back, clutching his chest, and the barbell falls with a crash. The athlete is standing, covered in bruises. He seems to be unconscious. Doctors are urgently needed. The crowd calls out to him, begging him to get up and keep fighting. The roar of the crowd chanting his name still rings in Yu Hansel's ears. He comes to, remembering the doctor's warning about blackouts. If I were more muscular, this wouldn't have happened? Flashes the thought, and the epic skill, unlimited muscle growth, is born. But do girls like jocks? While he's pondering, the rare skill, true contractile muscle, appears. No time for this, I need protein, he decides, gaining Hawkeye and the passive calm. The system announces, the condition is met. You have become a legendary species bodybuilder, and he thinks about chicken breast. Suddenly, two stunned cartoon chickens appear in front of him, clucking. Yu Hansel, now looking different, finds himself in the middle of a field, surrounded by huge round chickens. "What?" he screams, recoiling from the birds advancing on him. "But I definitely pressed the barbell." The hero is perplexed while the calmness skill is activated. Yu Hansel looks around the prairie, teeming with giant chickens, and mutters about the strangeness of the situation. He sits up, rubbing his chin thoughtfully, trying to comprehend what is happening. A sudden revelation flashes in his eyes. He seems to have understood everything. "I'm in hell because of the chicken breasts I ate," Yu Hansel assumes in horror. One of the huge chickens pecks him, confirming his worst fears. The feathered monsters begin to attack him from all sides, pecking non-stop. "Stop bothering me!" he explodes, knocking one of the chickens out with a powerful blow. Anger boils inside him because he still hasn't gotten his share of protein. Suddenly his gaze changes, reflecting extreme surprise at something new. Hawkeye is activated, analyzing the protein content of the stunned chickens. The system shows there are as many as 68 kilos of protein in a chicken. Is this really the voice of the ancestor of the rocking chair? If so, his eyes light up with a mad fire, anticipating a protein feast. With a cry of, "Thank you for your help," he rushes at the giant chickens. The chickens cluck in panic, not expecting such gratitude from the athlete. Soon all that remains of one of them is a skull on a stick, hinting at a meal. Hansel devours his prey with gusto, replenishing his protein reserves. "Ah, I'm full," he sighs with satisfaction, sitting by a fire of chicken bones. However, something still bothers him. Despite his satiety and peace, he notices that his arm has become suspiciously thin and weak. And the pectoral muscles also seem to have decreased in volume, causing concern. He is surprised to discover that he can scratch his back for the first time since kindergarten. Approaching the water, Yu Hansel looks at his reflection with concern, fearing the worst. In the reflection, he sees that the results of his hard work seem to have disappeared. A heart-rending cry of despair escapes his chest at the sight of himself. "Where did all my muscles go?" he screams, clutching his head at the water's edge. Hansel looks down at his stomach, realizing how much weight he has lost. It doesn't matter where he is now. Muscle loss has overshadowed everything else. He resolutely approaches the tree, not wanting to put up with his new dryness. His hand digs into the bark with force. He longs to regain his huge body. With a furious cry, Yu Hansel tries to pull out the tree with all his remaining strength. With a cry of "Hat!" he hoists the huge log onto his shoulders, ready to train. Yu Hansel carries a massive log, his body straining under the incredible weight. "Don't worry, Yu Hansel," he encourages himself. "Log squats!" The workout begins. His legs flare with energy as he squats with a log. He performs squats with fury, believing that the effort will not betray him. He moves into jump squats and launches into the air. 3 months have passed. Hansel is breathing heavily, sweat pouring down his face after a grueling workout. The effort really, he mutters, closing his eyes with a slight smile. They don't betray me at all. My muscles haven't grown, he despairs, even though he's pumped up again. At least, I still have enough protein, he notes, looking at the giant chickens. Hansel decides to start all over again, with the heart of a true muscle man, looking at another feathered giant. A sudden sound makes him turn around with confusion on his face. His eyes widen in horror at the sight of something incredible. A giant monster rooster with a dragon tail lets out a deafening battle cry. Hansel runs away in panic from the huge clawed paw pursuing him. He laments that all he wanted was huge muscles. The shadow of an even more colossal rooster covers him, causing a new attack of horror. A powerful blow from the beak shatters the ground. Hansel miraculously dodges, screaming in fear. He rushes away, realizing that one blow from this monster could be his last. Hansel looks around anxiously, sensing even greater danger. But then he notices the incredibly developed pectoral muscles of the giant rooster. Hansel wonders if the pectoral muscles improve the wing movements and if he should have done crossovers. He blames himself for forgetting to work the small muscles, which makes his chest look pathetic. I can't die here, he screams as he runs away, because he wants huge breasts too. He looks back at the 2 ordinary giant chickens who look at him with bewilderment. The chickens look puzzled, and Hansel mentally calls them feathered scoundrels. Hawkeye activates again, revealing the protein in the chickens, but Hansel doesn't need it. A giant monster rooster comes roaring towards him, and Hansel apologizes to the chickens in horror. Hawkeye powers up again, aiming at the monster, but Hansel yells that he doesn't need it. The system reports the monster's name is cockatrice, protein content is 12,000 kilogr. The enemy has a lot of protein. The system promises, eat the breast of a cockatrice and you will receive a rare skill, amazing muscle recovery. Hansel mutters in confusion, muscle recovery? This is a chance. The cockatrice attacks, its clawed paw nearly crushing Hansel, who dodges at the last moment. Hansel recalls the basics. Most people think that muscles grow during training, but this is not true. As he dodges the attacks, he continues to think, the muscles are actually being destroyed, temporarily losing strength. Climbing a tree, he thinks, but with proper nutrition and rest, they recover more strongly. It's super compensation. Looking at the pursuing monster, he concludes, muscles get stronger not during, but after training, during rest. His hand squeezes the bark tightly. If I speed up my recovery, I'll gain mass faster and stop being a skinny guy. The cockatrice furiously pecks at the tree, and Hansel barely manages to jump away from the flying chips. The monster continues to destroy the tree, and Hansel frantically thinks, how can I do this? He decides to risk everything by jumping straight at the monster with a cry of despair. His pectoral muscles swell to incredible proportions. The system sounds the alarm about excess energy. The system suggests disabling the skill, but Hansel, gritting her teeth, orders her not to interfere with the training. The skill is deactivated, Hansel exceeds the mass limit and gains a new ability, skeleton change. Cockatrice looks at Hansel's transformation in shock, his eye wide open. One of Hansel's arms grows to gigantic proportions, looming over the roaring monster. With eyes glowing red, Hansel sees the monster as just another dumbbell. He brings his monstrous fist down directly on the head of the stunned cockatrice. The monster is shocked by the powerful blow. Its beak opens limply. Hansel shouts, "Press!" and uses the full weight of his giant arm to press cockatrice to the ground. The system sounds the alarm. Hansel's muscle strength is running out while he's pressing on cockatrice. The contractile muscle skill is activated again to recover, knocking Hansel away from the defeated monster. His hand returns to its normal size, and he looks at the results of his training with indifference. Hansel thinks about chicken breast with anticipation as he looks at the defeated cockatrice. After thanking him for the food, he gains the long-awaited skill, Amazing Muscle Recovery, as the monster disappears. At night, by the fire, Hansel eats a giant piece of cockatrice meat with gusto, not yet knowing everything. He wonders why the muscles have disappeared again, unaware of the glowing eyes in the darkness. The sinister bandaged feet of unknown creatures emerge from the night mist. 3 creepy figures with glowing eyes emerge from the forest, one of them with a skull on his head. One of the creatures wipes away its dripping saliva, clearly anticipating a meeting with Hansel. The trio of creepy creatures justify themselves by saying that they haven't smelled meat for a long time. One of them wonders with horror who could have defeated cockatrice. Their gaze falls on Hansel, gobbling up meat by the fire. Is it really him? One offers to come closer, but the other, with a skull on his head, warns of danger. Hansel, chewing, freezes as he hears the approach of uninvited guests. He turns around and sees the Trinity sitting humbly before him and asks who they are. The creatures haltingly introduce themselves as ghouls from the Ali mine region, almost calling themselves meat. Hawkeye activates, reporting, "Ghoul, protein content 2.6 kilo. One of them panics, denies interest in humans." Hansel reflects with bewilderment that he has never heard of ghouls before. The ghoul timidly asks Hansel if he knows who defeated cockatrice. Hansel, holding a piece of meat, admits in surprise that he was the one who killed the cockatrice and apologizes, not knowing that the chicken had an owner. The ghouls joyfully exclaim, "We found him!" One even gives another a high five. The ghoul explains that due to the death of the strongest monster in the Ali mine, a battle for territory began. Hansel looks at something with a thoughtful expression, noting, "What a thin leg." Hansel's gaze falls on the ghoul's bandaged leg, and he wonders if it will break from one blow. The three ghouls bow to Hansel, asking for a favor as the conqueror of cockatrice. Hansel, rubbing his chin, asks doubtfully, "Is that so?" He feigns bewilderment and asks them to repeat their request, as if he had not heard it. One of the ghouls, with fear in his voice, says that this is already the 9th time. Hansel laughs, demanding, 10 laps, 10 sets, do at least 10 sets. Hansel points his finger admonishingly, "If you do something, repeat it at least 10 times, got it, kid?" The ghouls look at each other in confusion. One of them rubs his hand nervously in bewilderment. The disappointed ghoul suggests that the others leave, doubting Hansel's help. Hansel waves it off, saying that he is busy building muscle and has no time to help. The ghouls leave dejectedly. One of them says with understanding that everyone has their own reasons. Suddenly, Hansel calls out to them, offering to share the chicken breast since he can't eat it all by himself. The ghouls turn around hopefully. One offers to take some, since they haven't eaten meat for a long time. Hansel apologizes, and the ghouls thank him for the offered meat, clearly delighted. Hansel's gaze is fixed on the huge piece of cockatrice meat lying in front of him. One of the ghouls cautiously reaches for the giant piece of meat, muttering, wait. Hansel thinks in horror, "Am I really going to let this happen?" His gaze is fixed on the ghoul's hand reaching for the meat. This ghoul, if he... The ghoul tries to lift the piece, and Hansel shouts, "Stop, you'll break your back!" The ghoul turns around in bewilderment, not understanding what is going on. Hansel passionately explains the dangers of improper deadlift technique. With bulging eyes, he shouts, "You almost said goodbye to your back, got it?" The frightened ghoul mumbles apologies, not realizing his mistake. Hansel calms down a bit and asks in confusion, "Maybe you don't know what a deadlift is?" The trio of ghouls look at each other in confusion. "What is this? This is the first time we've heard of it." Hansel slaps his forehead. "Ah, so that's why they have such bodies." Hansel recalls the words of her elementary school teacher, covering her face with her hand. The teacher, a Mussulman, said that you only really learn by teaching others, as young Hansel repeated the exercise. The teacher advised with a smile, "If your muscles stop growing, try teaching others. It will help." Hansel thoughtfully repeats to himself, "Teach others, then?" A trio of ghouls grunt as they work together to drag a huge chunk of cockatrice meat along a forest path. One of the ghouls looks at Hansel, who seems to be in charge of the process, with bewilderment. Hansel decisively announces to the ghouls that after eating they will go to them. The ghouls are delighted, and Hansel asks to go tomorrow because his muscles need rest to grow. The next day they arrive at the ghoul village, a settlement in a deserted canyon. Hansel is greeted by a large ghoul on a throne, greeting him as strong. The leader of the ghouls introduces himself as the Lord of the Ghouls and asks how Hansel got here while Hawkeye scans him. Hansel wonders in surprise if this is the chief of the tribe and replies that he got there without any problems. The Lord is glad to hear this, and Hansel notes his thin limbs and huge belly. Hansel diagnoses the Overlord with obesity due to lack of exercise, while the Overlord thanks him for the gift. The master reports that he has ordered the rest of the meat to be brought, and Hansel doubts the efficiency of his subordinates. The ghoul leader bursts out laughing, asking if Hansel is worried about these nobodies. Hansel, clearly irritated, demands to get down to business, mentally calling the Overlord a bastard. The Ghoul Lord, becoming serious, states that they are in big trouble because of the murder of Cockatrice. He explains that his tribe is the weakest in Ali Mine, incapable of fighting and feeding on carrion. Hansel asks again about skill in surprise, remembering that he had already heard this word in his head. The Ghoul Lord asks with a grin, "What's a skill? Are you kidding me?" Hansel, looking confused, replies that he is not joking. The leader of the ghouls, covering his mouth with his hand, can hardly contain his laughter. He grins evilly and orders that those bastards who dragged Hansel here be brought in. The trinity of ghouls who brought Hansel are forced to kneel before the throne. The bound ghouls fearfully ask the Lord why he called them. The Lord, propping up his cheek, replies that they may not be aware of their sin. He rises from his throne and orders that it be brought. Two ghouls are dragging a huge club, and the Overlord is talking about loyalty to a strong monster. The Ghoul Lord takes up his club, declaring that this is a divine law that monsters have followed since time immemorial. The Ghoul Lord claims that he wanted to subdue the conqueror of cockatrice, but was deceived. He shouts in rage that they will pay with their lives for their deception, and swings his club. Purple energy envelops the club. The Overlord activates the skill, Heavy Club X2. The reinforced club flies with crushing force towards one of the bound ghouls. The ghoul, who is hit by the blow, asks in horror, "What are you doing?" Hansel stops the club with one hand, asking if bullying the weak is their custom. The Ghoul Lord is stunned, unable to believe that his blow has been stopped, and Hansel demands an answer. The leader mutters in confusion that his skill must have failed, or he didn't put in the power. Hansel looks at his smoking palm as the Overlord convinces himself that the weakling couldn't have repelled his attack. The Overlord grins evilly, promising to show this lucky guy what real skill is. The Ghoul Lord boasts that his heavy cudgel skill multiplies an item's weight up to 10 times. Hansel is amazed. Multiply weight? Such an ability seems incredible to him. The leader of the ghouls, surrounded by a purple aura, declares that with his mana he will increase his weight 9-fold. He is gleefully anticipating what will happen with a 32-kilogram club multiplied by 9, and also with his speed. The Ghoul Lord roars as he activates the Heavy Club X4 skill, his eyes glowing ominously. One of the bound ghouls screams in horror as he sees the force rushing towards him. Hansel stops the blow with one hand again, and the club shatters into pieces. The Ghoul Lord is stunned, and Hansel admits, "Your skill is impressive. It's a shame you're my enemy." Hansel adds with a cold smile that he is even more shocked by the Overlord's character. Hansel's eyes flash red, ready to fight, as the Overlord swings the broken club. Hansel demonstrates raising his hand in front of him, his fist enveloped in purple energy. Suddenly, Hansel grabs the Ghoul Lord by the throat, causing him to wheeze. He menacingly asks whether the Lord considers himself entitled to decide the fates of others. The Ghoul Lord writhes, and Hansel calmly addresses him. "Hey!" With eyes glowing red, Hansel asks an unexpected question. "What are your big 3? The dumbfounded Overlord asks again if Hansel is going to hit him 3 times. Hansel patiently explains the 3 basic exercises, activating the skill Calm. He reproachfully asks the Lord if he really doesn't know such basics. Hansel feigns surprise and states, "Oh, really?" And so their power struggle begins. The Ghoul Lord, looking at the huge stone barbell, asks, "So I have to lift it?" To which Hansel replies in the affirmative. The Ghoul Lord reminds Hansel of his promise to become his subordinate if he loses. Hansel worriedly advises the Overlord to watch his posture so as not to hurt his back. The Ghoul Leader gleefully thinks that Hansel doesn't know about the possibility of reducing weight with the Heavy Club skill. The Overlord activates the skill Heavy Club X1-4, making the stone bar lighter. He lifts the barbell with ease, and the inscription reads, "Ghoul Lord, 200 kilo success." The Overlord passes the line to Hansel, who criticizes his technique, advising him to use his buttocks more. Hansel addresses the other ghouls, warning them that if he wins, they will also train. He prepares for the deadlift, explaining that it is a full-body exercise that measures overall strength. Hansel demonstrates the correct position, emphasizing that the main load falls on the lower body. He exhales, reminding us of the importance of warming up the hip joints and proper technique to avoid injury. Hansel continues the instruction, pointing out the correct position of the feet, shoulder-width apart. He shows how to open your chest and engage your back, lower back, core, and glutes for proper posture. Then, sliding the barbell along your shins and thighs, you need to lift the barbell with the strength of your entire body. As soon as the bar reaches Hansel's knees, the Ghoul Lord grins maliciously, preparing his meanness. The ghoul leader secretly activates the Heavy Club X4 skill to add weight to the opponent's barbell. Hansel's eyes flash red and he clenches his teeth, feeling the sudden increase in pressure. With an incredible cry, Hansel not only lifts but throws the huge stone barbell high into the sky. The ghouls look in horror at the flying projectile, and Hansel admits that he miscalculated the force. He smiles sheepishly, apologizing and saying that it looks like he'll have to make a new barbell. The Lord of the Ghouls is in complete shock, barely able to say, "Nanu." The ghouls fall prostrate before Hansel, proclaiming him their new master. Hansel is confused, and the system announces, "The title of Ghoul Lord has been obtained." Hansel reflects that after losing, the Ghoul Lord became very obedient. In a conversation with the Overlord, Hansel learns that this place is another world. Hansel decides not to return for now, so as not to be known as a weakling in his world. This world, Laisha, lives by the law of the strong devours the weak, so the Lord swore allegiance. Hansel suggests calling the Lord of Ghouls by the abbreviated name of Ghoulord, and he agrees. Ghoulord announces that they have arrived at the warrior training ground. Hansel, judging by their bodies, expected poor preparation, but he didn't expect the ghoul training ground to be so run down. Hansel wonders how the ghouls trained at all, to which Ghoulord guiltily replies about his lack of knowledge. The hero decides that first-class trainers will create the necessary exercise machines themselves. His gaze becomes determined, and he loudly commands the ghouls to line up in 5 ranks. The ghouls line up obediently, their skinny figures expressing confusion and anticipation. Hansel addresses the line, reminding them that ghouls are considered the weakest, feeding on the remains of other monsters. He asks them what they think they lack most. After their timid suggestions about teamwork and speed, Hansel firmly states, "You need a strong body." With enthusiasm, showing 3 fingers, he promises to turn them into real warriors in 3 months. The ghouls whisper to each other in surprise, not believing that 3 months will be enough. A sudden surge of determination comes over them and they clench their fists. "We will no longer be looked down upon." Hansel happily approves of their attitude. "Do you like it? Good." He announces the first exercise. "Take the push-up position." The ghouls look at each other in bewilderment, not understanding what a lying support is. Hansel demonstrates the plank by furiously commanding, "Get down, you devils!" The ghouls awkwardly try to repeat. One asks, "Am I doing it right?" The other is perplexed. "What is this?" With his eyes glowing, Hansel announces, "Let's start our warm-up with push-ups." Dozens of ghouls line up for push-ups. Hansel commands, "100 push-ups! Start!" The caption on the screen reads, 3 hours later. One of the ghouls, drenched in sweat, looks up at the sky, exhausted, barely breathing. Most of the ghouls are already lying on the ground, exhausted. Some are trying with their last strength. Hansel continues to do push-ups, counting into the tens of thousands, demonstrating incredible endurance. His eyes flash and he pauses in his counting, asking, excuse me? Ghoulord informs Hansel, who is now doing push-ups with a huge rock on his back, that the ghouls can no longer continue. Hansel announces with a smile, "Okay, then another 100 push-ups and then let's go to lunch." The ghouls exclaim in horror, "After 700 push-ups, another 100? The exhausted ghouls fall. One mutters that it was better under Ghoulord. Another is afraid of dying from the strain. Hansel finally commands, "Let's stop, that's enough, get up, get up." Looking at them, Hansel wonders if this is possible and thinks that he will sleep for a week, wondering if Ghoulord will challenge him again. Hansel, although tired, orders all the ghouls to stand up. The ghouls stretch with relief. One feels like his body is about to fall apart. Another states, "It looks like it's all over." One of the ghouls, stretching, says with relief, "Now let's go eat." Hansel explodes with a shout, "It's precisely because of this attitude that you are considered the weakest." He asks, shaking with tension, "Are you really okay with being called weaklings?" The 2 ghouls listen as Hansel reminds them, "This is a wild land. Only the strongest survive here." The hero asks furiously, "Are you still going to be weaklings running away when your loved ones are killed?" Hansel firmly declares, "If you are such trash, get out. I refuse to train you." Clenching his fist, he promises, "But to those who stay and continue to do push-ups, I will give you the muscles to protect what is important. Trust me." The question, "Who is the best coach?" appears on the screen, along with the silhouettes of 3 muscular figures. Next question, "Someone who has extensive knowledge of muscles, someone who has reached the limit with his own body?" An incredibly muscular figure is shown, and the text reads, "Maybe for some, yes. They can achieve great results with that knowledge." Hansel says, "But these are not the best coaches." On the screen is an emaciated ghoul, and the text reads, "The best coach is the one." The ghouls struggle to do push-ups, and Hansel continues, "Who can motivate even those who don't want to train at all?" Hansel shouts furiously, "Do push-ups like your life depends on it. Push away your weakness." He appeals to their feelings. "Protect your parents, your father with your right hand, your mother with your left." Hansel doesn't let up. "Press, you can do it!" The ghoul's hand trembles from the tension. His blazing gaze is directed at the ghouls. "Press to ease the burden of your parents, for the sake of the rebirth of the tribe, for your own sake." One of the ghouls lets out a battle cry, squeezing the last of his strength out of himself. Hansel continues to command tirelessly, "Press, eat!" Dozens of ghouls do push-ups in sync under his watchful eye. A little motivation and the ghouls stopped complaining because Hansel was right. Without realizing it, Hansel has leveled up his Hawkeye trainer skill to level 2. 3 months passed, and the landscape of wild lands spread out before the viewer. A squad of lizardmen in dark cloaks with backpacks purposefully moves along a forest path. One scarred lizard asks if this is the right path to the ghoul village, while another confirms its existence. Noticing the village, one of the lizards suggests forming a battle formation before attacking. But his comrade dismisses the idea with contempt. "Against some ghouls? Just attack!" The lizardmen charge forward with a battle cry, intent on taking over the village as their first colony. Gulord informs Hansel of the lizardmen's arrival, who evaluates their quadriceps. Hansel loudly commands, "Bench press group, open your chest!" Hansel commands him to tense his stomach, and the ghoul inhales with effort, preparing himself. The trainer orders you to squeeze your glutes, emphasizing the importance of keeping your entire body tense. The lizardmen are rapidly approaching, and Hansel orders the ghouls to keep an eye on them. At his command, "Press!" The ghouls synchronously throw huge stones at the attackers. The stone hits the lizard right in the head, and it falls dead to the ground. The surviving lizards look around in panic. One of them screams, "What? Who did this?" Hansel looks at them with a calm smile, saying, "What do you think? They were..." He continues, "Ghouls who are no longer the weakest monsters. Their powerful silhouettes are visible in the background. A hail of stones falls on the lizards, causing them to fall and seek shelter in terror. The scarred lizard realizes with alarm, "Damn, at this rate we're all going to be destroyed." But the scarred lizard frowns, thinking about a new plan. He decides that defeating their boss will turn the tide of the battle, looking at Hansel and Gulord. The lizard senses Gulord's powerful mana, mistaking him for the leader, but has no doubt in his victory. The leader of the lizards roars furiously, challenging Gulord to a fight. "Don't hide, coward!" He demands a one-on-one duel as Hansel and Gulord exchange glances. Gulord asks Hansel with concern what he will do in this situation. Hansel considers the challenge silently, his face unreadable. Suddenly, Hansel remembers, "When I was a child, I once got an iguana." He continues that it was a rare species of sea crocodile, who always wanted to play. Hansel recalls with a grin the incredible force of his pet's bite. Hansel recalls, the saltwater crocodile's bite force is almost 7,700 psi, weighing over 2 tons. He continues that even such incredible power couldn't bite through his trained muscles, causing surprise in the pet. Hansel ponders with a menacing look, "What should I do if my pet doesn't listen?" The crocodile, still clinging to the hand, makes a puzzled sound, clearly sensing something is wrong. Suddenly, Hansel has a flash of inspiration. "Ah, I remember," and snaps his fingers. Gulord looks in bewilderment at the beam of light that shot out from the ground next to him. The lizard chieftain, seeing Gulord's in action, shouts, "Lord of the ghouls, do you admit defeat?" Suddenly, someone's hands grab the lizard with a death grip. Hansel, shouting, "First lie down!" with a powerful movement throws the stunned lizard to the ground. The leader lizard, pinned to the ground, exhales dark energy in shock. Hansel sits astride the lizard, holding it in place, and says, "And then?" Hansel looks at the lizard with a frightening expression, asking, "Was that intimidation?" The lizard desperately tries to break free, screaming, "Let me go, you crazy thing!" And Hansel remembers how, as a child, he was told to show animals who was stronger. Hansel, with eyes glowing green, repeats, "I am stronger than you. I am stronger than you." The lizard screams, "Let go, don't disgrace the warrior," as he tries to bite Hansel. Hansel's eyes sparkle even brighter, his gaze piercing. The lizard trembles with fear, its resistance weakening. The leader lizard, completely overwhelmed, whispers, "King, I give up." Hansel remarks with a satisfied smile, "What we learn from books is really accurate." Hansel is victorious, and the defeated lizard leader begs for mercy while the ghouls rejoice. Meanwhile, other events are unfolding near the Ali mine. Before us appears the Duchy of Verdo with its majestic castle. Lord Verdo addresses the three kneeling warriors, remarking on their talent. Count Verdo assigns them a second-class mission to investigate the disappearance of the cockatrices. The warriors accept the order with determination, ready to carry out the task. The Trinity leaves the throne room after receiving an important assignment. The Count's assistant asks doubtfully whether these chicks will be able to cope with such a mission. However, she immediately laughs confidently, reassuring Count Verdo. After all, these warriors, although young, are already known as true geniuses. The assistant introduces Leiper, known for his exquisite swordsmanship and unpredictable attacks. She then describes Henderd, his companion, who prefers a powerful and brutal style of fighting with a blunt sword. Together, the pair are nearly invincible unless a dragon appears, which impresses the Count. The Count looks doubtfully at the third, simple-looking warrior walking behind them. The assistant admits with slight awkwardness that he is not very gifted with a sword, but is very diligent. When the Count asks why he was sent, she replies that all three are childhood friends. And giggling, he adds that the two geniuses enjoy his company. Meanwhile, the trio of warriors are already making their way through the dense forest, one of them carrying a heavy bag. Suddenly, a goblin archer appears in the tree, giggling evilly and drawing his bowstring. The goblin takes careful aim at unsuspecting travelers walking along the trail. The goblin's arrow flies towards the travelers, but a bright light flashes between them. Suddenly, Leiper attacks the goblin archer from above, drawing his sword. The frightened goblin still releases an arrow, which flies straight to the target. The arrow flies straight into the face of the warrior with the bag, catching him off guard. The warrior's eyes widen in horror, beads of sweat running down his face. Henderd turns around, noticing the ambush. "Watch out! There are hobgoblins among them!" Someone's powerful hand intercepts the arrow a centimeter from the target. Henderd, having caught the arrow, furiously brings his blunt sword down on the enemy. A blow of such force shatters a goblin's head into pieces. Leiper and Henderd shout in unison, "Blog, we will protect you at any cost." The Blog, hiding behind a shield, froze in horror as blood spattered around it. The rescued warrior screams in a breaking voice, "To thank you!" The comrades run up to Blog. Henderd apologizes for letting the enemy get so close. Leiper furiously scolds Henderd for his carelessness, while Blog looks at his friends with envy. The Blog laments its weakness while Leiper continues to berate Henderd, who is asking for punishment. In despair, Blog reflects on his own incompetence, and Leiper angrily punishes Henderd. Blog's inner cry echoes in his mind, "God, give me an answer." Memory. An exhausted Blog, barefoot, whispers that he can't do it anymore but is only asked again. The young green-eyed guy announces to the others with a grin, "Guys, he said he can't." The pale instructor concludes with a cold smile, "Then I guess we don't have much of a choice." The instructor lifts the heavy green carcass with ease, demonstrating his strength. Hansel makes the lizard do push-ups over and over again, and he screams in rage from such training. The lizards thank them for everything, and Hansel invites them to train some more, but they politely refuse. The ghoul musclemen say goodbye with enthusiasm, showing off their impressive muscles. The leader lizard, with a drop of sweat on his temple, remains thoughtfully silent, clearly experiencing what happened. Hansel waves goodbye to the ghouls as the lizards with the bags prepare to leave. Hansel is surprised to see how much BODYBUILDER has changed thanks to the training. Explanation. During rest, muscles recover and grow. This is called unloading. To avoid overstraining the nervous system and injury, adequate rest is necessary. In the 9th week of training, even the ghouls felt their growth slow down, and Hansel is dragging a huge boulder. Hansel notices that the ghouls did 4,564 reps yesterday, but only 563 today, and decides to give them a day off. The words, "I was amazed the next day," appear on the black screen. Someone's muscular arm waves in greeting to Hansel. The ghoul BODYBUILDER, with a wide smile and impressive muscles, wishes Hansel a good morning. Hansel notices with a drop of sweat that the ghouls have become taller and larger, and they are already ready for new exercises. The Hawkeye skill activates, revealing that the ghoul has evolved into a BODYBUILDER with 8% body fat. Hansel is surprised by the name Goody Builder, but understands that they no longer need to unload. Hansel announces that the lizards have returned, and it is time to prepare food, leading the ghouls away with him. The pumped-up ghouls hopefully ask Hansel if they can go hunting on their own. Hansel glares at them, suspecting that they just want to skip practice. The ghoul admits with a nervous smile that they have never defeated the cooks before. He adds that until now they had only carried the cooks killed by Hansel, but now, with such muscles, they might be able to handle it. Hansel agrees, happy that he will now be able to increase his own training time. The ghoul asks thoughtfully if the good builders can win. Hansel asks again in surprise, defeat who? The ghoul waves his hand in panic. Ah, it's nothing, Hansel Nim. He babbles that he was just wondering if the good builders could surpass Hansel if they got together, but that was a mistake. Hansel places a reassuring hand on the ghoul's shoulder, telling him not to worry. Hansel confidently declares that he has no equal in the deadlift, carrying a ghoul on his shoulder in front of the line of good builders. A group of good builders with backpacks follow Hansel along a forest path. Out of breath, Goody Builder asks Hansel doubtfully if this is really necessary. Hansel, watching the ghouls attack, notes his good stance. Suddenly there is a loud crunch. The ghoul puts his foot down awkwardly. The Goody Builder falls, writhing in pain. His comrades look at him in shock. The wounded man's face is distorted with suffering. Large drops of sweat and tears roll down his cheeks. Hansel looks wide-eyed at his charge's unexpected injury. Far away from them, the Blog group moves cautiously along a narrow mountain path. Suddenly, Blog stops and resolutely draws his sword, which flashes a blue light. He recalls Liper and Henderd being upset over one missed goblin. The Blog concludes with bitterness that all this is due to his weakness and unreliability. The Blog grits its teeth, blaming itself. If it were stronger, its friends wouldn't worry. At night, while everyone is sleeping, Blog decides to train even harder to become stronger. Suddenly, someone's hand gently lands on his, adjusting his grip on the sword. This is Liper, advising Blog to put more force into his thumb and feel the wind on impact. Blog, with a drop of sweat, asks in surprise if he woke Liper up. Liper replies with a smile. No, I didn't wake him up, stupid. He pinches Blog's cheek affectionately, admitting that they knew about his nightly training. Liper explains that this is just friendly advice to steer Blog on the right path. Blog, touched, looks at Liper with embarrassment, not knowing what to say. Liper, with a sly smile and a slight blush, remarks, Oh, are you blushing? Blog sheepishly asks why Liper is laughing, and Liper bursts into laughter, saying that Blog has been training too hard. Suddenly, Henderd's voice is heard, asking what they are doing without him. Henderd stands at a distance, arms crossed over his chest, and Blog exclaims his name in surprise. The Blog, with a drop of sweat, tries to explain that he was just training, and Liper. Henderd puts his finger to his lips, calling for silence. Liper angrily points his finger at Henderd's nose, indignant at how dare he show up after putting Blog in danger. Henderd sternly reminds them that it is already late, and if they do not go to bed, they will be slow tomorrow. He adds that Blog needs to sleep for his skin to regenerate and become softer, which surprises Blog. The Blog covers its mouth in shock and embarrassment, clearly not expecting such a remark. Liper looks puzzled, and Henderd gives him a stern look, warning him to be careful. Henderd interrupts training, telling Blog it's time to sleep, but Blog is confused as to why they decide for him. In the night forest, something is rapidly approaching, rushing through the trees. Liper, with a smile and a raised finger, assures that they are arguing because they are friends, but Blog doubts this logic. A muscular lizard with glowing eyes stalks through the forest thicket, ready to attack. The Blog waves its hand wearily, saying that they will laugh it off anyway if he insists. He agrees that it is late and suggests that everyone go to bed. Suddenly, Henderd tenses up, his eye wide open, sweat running down his face. Henderd shouts loudly for everyone to prepare for battle. It's the lizards. The trio of heroes instantly take up battle positions, preparing to repel the attack. Henderd blocks the lizard's attack with his shield, while Blog and Liper engage the others. The lizard panics and shouts to his people to run because they are being pursued. The two lizards run away in terror, looking back at the approaching giant shadow. A huge flock of giant round chickens rushes forward, sweeping away everything in their path. A dark mark appears on the smooth side of one of the chickens, as if someone had grabbed it. Out of nowhere, a creepy purple hand reaches out, saying only one word, "teen." Hansel and the Goody Builders chase giant chickens with their eyes glowing, obsessed with protein. Hansel, with his tongue hanging out and a crazy gleam in his eyes, doesn't even notice what's going on around him. The story goes that Hansel was unaware of how rapidly the food chain was changing, with him now at the top. Hansel and his good builders are hiding in the bushes, watching something tensely. Hansel looks at his charges doubtfully, asking if they are sure they can handle it. Hansel notices that the round chickens seem to have better muscles than his charges. The goody builder insists that these are puffy muscles, which shocks Hansel, who did not expect such words. One of the giant chickens notices the worm and waddles towards the tree. A chicken tries to squeeze between two trees to get to its prey. Stuck, the chicken strains, its eyes glowing red and its body shaking with the effort. With incredible force, the chicken breaks through the trees, scattering wood chips. A deflated, smoking chicken with glowing eyes stands over the fallen tree trunks. Hansel and the good builders watch this display of strength thoughtfully from behind cover. One of the good builders stands up determinedly, showing off his impressive muscles. The pumped-up goody builder confidently heads into the forest, leaving Hansel and his friend behind. A stone-faced goody builder leans against two trees, trying to push them apart. His face contorts with effort and he lets out a battle cry. Hansel and the rest of the good builders watch as the trees succumb to his power. Good builder, breathing heavily, suggests repeating in a minute, but Hansel orders a 3-minute rest. Hansel gives advice on technique, mentioning the position of the legs, and good builder agrees. The goody builder carefully places his hand on the tree trunk, preparing for another attempt. He takes up his position again, his muscles tense, leaves falling around him. In a forest clearing, goody builder continues his strength training under the supervision of Hansel. Close-up of good builder's determined gaze as he focuses on the task at hand. With a mad grin and a furious cry, goody builder puts all his power into the push. The good builder lets out a furious scream, his eyes glowing with inhuman tension. The trees give way and Hansel commands him to come out, to which he agrees. Hansel explains the effectiveness of the bench press, while the good builders complain about the powerful roots of trees. Hansel is puzzled. Why are their trained muscles inferior to those of chickens? A line of round, plump chickens float past them. One of the chickens, its eyes glowing, lets out a battle cry. A close-up of a chicken's tiny wings straining in a show of strength. Hansel is shocked and can't believe her eyes and exclaims, "Is that all?" The good builders continue their unsuccessful training, and one of them asks Hansel what's going on. Hansel blames himself for their failure, and goody builder is interested in errors in technique. Hansel screams in despair that this is not the case at all. He explains to the good builders that their muscles have simply gotten used to his routine. The good builders are perplexed, but Hansel confidently declares that it is time to change the program. With a beaming smile, Hansel orders everyone to line up in 5 rows. The wards obediently line up, awaiting new instructions from the mentor. Hansel introduces a homemade block trainer, demanding 3 cheers. The good builders enthusiastically applaud the ingenuity of their leader. Hansel demonstrates the crossover exercise, promising them victory over the chickens. Good builders are ecstatic. Their master always knows how to solve any problem. One of the jocks flexes his pectoral muscles, proclaiming Hansel to be the best. Hansel asks for silence with a smile, intending to explain everything. He demonstrates the crossover, an exercise to stimulate the inner chest muscles. Hansel promises to show it slowly, because it is difficult for beginners, and the good builders are listening. First movement, lean forward slightly and bend your knees slightly. Second, do not straighten your arms completely, but keep the tension. Third, stand in the center, stick out your chest, and bring your arms together like a bird's wings. Hansel explains how the angle and height of the cables change the load on the muscles. After finishing the briefing, Hansel smiles and invites everyone to ask questions. He announces that he has prepared more exercise machines in other trees, and the good builders roar with delight. Good builders, pushing each other, rush to new exercise machines, burning with the desire to destroy their pectoral muscles. Hansel smiles and is touched by the zeal of his muscleman charges. Good builder's powerful chest smokes from the strain of exercise. Round chickens appear nearby, watching the training with curiosity. One of the chickens is seen close up, stating that she followed their instructions. Good builders are delighted. Their pectoral muscles really did get bigger. The chicken's eye widens in shock, reflecting the incredible. Suddenly, the chicken breast also becomes huge and sculpted. The chickens begin to glow brightly, making strange sounds like "cuck, cuck." Hansel and one of the good builders look at the light show with puzzlement. One of the chickens flares even brighter, as if concentrating its energy. The chicken, shining golden, lets out a battle cry, "Kikoka!" And the ground beneath it cracks. Hansel is amazed to see that these chicken bastards have gotten even bigger. The good builders, tensing their muscles, assure Hansel that they will cope with this threat. Giant chickens rush to attack with a battle cry of "Kikoka!" A whole flock of angry chickens rushes forward. The good builders scream in surprise. The Hawkeye skill is activated while Goody Builder tries to grab the glowing chicken. The bodybuilder's hand squeezes the chicken, and a window with stats appears. Name cock, protein 132 kilon. With a powerful blow of its wing, the chicken sends Goody Builder flying, blood spurting. A close-up of the face of a defeated muscle man with blood gushing from his mouth. Hansel watches seriously as the chickens evolve behind him, surrounded by a blue glow. The system warns, only calmness can stop the evolution of the cocks, do not disturb them. Elsewhere, Goodlord is enjoying the sunny day and fine weather. Guarding the house seems boring, but he immediately finds something to entertain himself with. Goodlord is having unbridled fun, enjoying his newfound freedom among the flowers. Suddenly, a loud rumbling in his stomach interrupts his fun. He's hungry. Goodlord ponders, Hansel is a nice guy, but their culinary tastes differ greatly. And here's the solution. Goodlord is launching his own show. Goolord's Way, cooked coca skin. The ingredients are already waiting on the table. Coca skin, flour, aromatic dried fruits, and spices. First, Goodlord skillfully shreds cock's skin into large, delicious slices. He then marinates the pieces thoroughly in salt and spices to remove the smell. Goodlord carefully mixes flour with spices, creating a magical powder. He generously sprinkles this mixture onto cock's skin, believing that it will help him surpass Hansel. Goodlord then drops the breaded pieces into the boiling oil, listening for the sizzle. With a beaming smile, he presents the finished dish, crispy golden coca skin. Meanwhile, a deafening explosion is heard in the forest, shaking the ground. Hansel stands calmly with his arms crossed as the smoke clears around him. One of the good builders falls to his knees and laments why he cannot win despite all his training. Another jock suggests that the problem is technique, but Hansel calmly counters that he was looking in the wrong place. The good builder cries out in despair that this is not the case at all. In a panic, covered in sweat, he tries to find a more reasonable explanation for what is happening. Hansel approaches the dejected good builder, who does not understand the reason for his defeat. The trainer explains, the difference in effort and time is colossal. The chickens have been developing throughout their lives. The good builder, sweating profusely, realizes the bitter truth about the long road to strength. A chicken with incredible breasts appears in the background, confirming Hansel's words about the difficulty of achieving them. However, Hansel encourages his charges, claiming that there is still a chance of victory. A spark of hope flashes in Goody Builder's eyes. We can win! Hansel encourages them to remember their entire journey and how they reached their current level. Goody Builder looks up at the sky with feeling, remembering, we came to this together. Flashback. Hansel and the good builders gruelingly train while carrying rocks at his count. Hansel smiles encouragingly at one of the jocks, asking if it's hard for him under the huge rock. A Goody Builder with a huge rock on his back shouts at Hansel, "No, sir!" Hansel notes with a smile that their fighting spirit has improved, but training must be regular. He reminds us that a little strength does not eliminate weakness. Hansel boasts that he squatted at least 500 kilos on Earth, shocking the bodybuilders. The trainer slaps his legs, saying that he needs to work his roots for true strength. The good builders shout, "Yes, sir," in unison and continue their grueling run with stones. One of the jocks, falling to his knees, thoughtfully says, "The source of strength." Close up of his powerful leg, he realizes, strength comes from the roots. Hansel confirms with a satisfied smile, "You finally get it." The trainer explains, "You lost with your chest, but what if you add the strength of your legs?" The good builder starts to glow blue. Goody Builder's powerful punch leaves a yellow trail of energy in the air. A good builder with glowing eyes flies to attack a giant chicken. Hansel encourages with a smile, "You've done well up until now." The coach demands, "Now show me your efforts and fighting spirit." The Goody Builder unleashes all his power with a furious cry of "Wow!" A chicken with a bloodshot eye greets the attack with a deafening "Caw!" With another blow, Cock throws Goody Builder high into the sky. The defeated muscle man only manages to mumble in mid-flight, "How?" Hansel watches calmly as the exhausted good builders fall around him. Hansel grinned as he addressed the fallen, "Oh yeah, your legs are tired after all that walking, right?" Hansel sarcastically remarks that they realized everything too late, while the explosion from the fall can be seen in the distance. Meanwhile, the unsuspecting Koki stroll calmly through the forest, clucking. One of the cooks suddenly stops, saying in surprise, "Cook?" He notices Hansel, who calmly says, "Cook," with his arms crossed. Cock's eyes light up with an ominous light. He licks his lips predatorily. "Coco! Co!" The cock gives a deafening war cry, opening its beak wide. A whole flock of enraged cocks with burning eyes rushes straight at Hansel. Hansel looks slightly puzzled by this sudden attack. He slowly lowers his hand, muttering the name of the exercise, one-arm dumbbell press. The maddened Koki approach with furious cries, ready to tear him to pieces. The presenter's gaze freezes in horror. He babbles, "Cook?" The past flashes by, from defenseless chicks to huge chickens guided by instinct. Their powerful bodies are a living embodiment of natural strength, inspiring awe. The most daring cock defiantly puffs out his chest in front of Hansel, who only clenches his fist tighter. The scene changes. A whole chicken with vegetables is already cooking deliciously in the cauldron. Hansel smiles and extends a leg to Goodbuilder. "Don't blame yourself, the main thing is that you've grown up." The students gather around the cauldrons of food. The trainer sets the task. "Tomorrow you will get your own protein." Hansel lifts up a glowing piece of meat. "Now, together, not massa!" The Goodbuilders heave their portions, echoing the trainer's call before a new test of strength. Hansel looks at them. "Now you understand that you won't surpass me anytime soon, right?" Hansel advises his students to hunt carefully, remembering his lessons. The Goodbuilders nod and ask if the trainer will join them. Hansel replies that he will first finish the workout by squeezing the resistance band. He declares that today's training is more important than the battle, standing in front of a huge rock. The students wish him luck and leave, and Hansel prepares for the exercise. Hansel flexes his biceps as he stretches the straps, complaining that the weight is too light. The coach looks into the distance, wondering if he should have taken the former lord with him. Meanwhile, the Goodbuilders discuss how their bodies are now ready to fight the cocks. One of the jocks expresses concern that if the Koki evolve again, it will become dangerous. Another Goodbuilder says thoughtfully that Hansel did not name the conditions for victory. One of the jocks estimates that Hansel caught 27 cocks on his own. The Goodbuilders decide to take advantage of the moment and catch 50 cocks while Hansel is distracted. It is suggested to split into 3 groups and signal with the pectoral muscles in case of danger. One of them, smiling, prepares to run, announcing the start of the operation. The Goodbuilders rush into the forest with a battle cry, starting their merry riot. Meanwhile, another group comes across a giant skeleton, assuming it is a cockatrice. Examining the remains, one of them concludes that cockatrice was killed with a single magical blow. His companion realizes in horror that the killer must be incredibly powerful, like the great wizard Adam. The muscular comrade tries to cheer Blog up, but he angrily demands that he focus on the mission. Suddenly, all 3 of them become alert as they hear an approaching rumble. The trio listens intently. One commands Blog to stay behind. The mission is not easy. A huge cock flies out of the thicket with a loud cackle. One of the bodybuilders confidently declares that cock is not a problem. Suddenly, the Goodbuilders appear riding on their cocks, counting the birds they've caught. 24, 25. One of the riding Goodbuilders remarks in surprise, "Huh? A human?" The group's leader shouts at Hender to stay with Blog, as they have never encountered such a monster before. Blog furiously waves off help as his comrades try to protect him from the surrounding cocks. The Goodbuilders stop. One warns that people are cruel and unpredictable. Another Goodbuilder agrees that rash decisions are dangerous, watching the 3 surrounded. One of the Goodbuilders flexes his powerful pectoral muscles, giving the signal. Those around him are puzzled as to what Goodybuilder is planning, wondering if this is a trick before the attack. The Goodbuilders decide to call in teams 1 and 2 to help them out in order to increase their chances with numbers. The powerful pectoral muscles vibrate, raising the question, is this rapid development a blessing or a curse? The Goodbuilders' signal to gather allies unexpectedly attracts the attention of the cooks. The cock's eye flashes brightly, foreshadowing their furious reaction to the signal. The huge glowing cook lets out a deafening cry of "Coca!" ready for action. The horrified observers assume that it is Cocus, whose strength is comparable to that of a wyvern. The enraged Koki, led by the glowing giant, rush towards the fleeing Goodbuilders. The 3 Goodbuilders panic and realize that they are facing imminent death. 2 brave Goodbuilders charge in while their comrades watch in horror. One of the Goodbuilders screams in amazement, recognizing the leaders of the 2nd and 3rd teams. The arriving jocks ask with a smile if they are late for the battle. Their comrade replies with a predatory grin that they are just in time. The good builders prepare to meet the pack of cocks rushing towards them, asking each other if they are ready. One of them is enveloped in a blue aura, remembering Hansel's secret technique. His eyes flash with determination, ready to apply the knowledge he has gained. Memory. A good builder struggles to do a bench press, grunting under the barbell. Hansel's hand corrects his grip, reminding him of the correct technique. The trainer helps the student by explaining the importance of support when mastering the exercise. The student ponders thoughtfully how to safely experience his own power. Good builders prepare to use a secret bodybuilding technique, using cocks as living ammunition. Two blazing-eyed musclemen unleash the power of the auxiliary muscle press on Coca. Their pectoral muscles shine following the commandment. Tear. Without thinking about the consequences, gather all your might. Goody Builder's mighty hand crunches on Cock's head, and he lets out a dying cry. With glowing eyes, the jock roars, "Take that, the power of our pectoral muscles!" The good builders shout press and create a shockwave, sending the cooks flying in all directions. Several cooks are down, one of them cackling loudly after taking a critical hit. One of the good builders happily announces success, confident that victory is imminent. Suddenly, his gaze freezes in surprise. He turns to his comrades. "Everyone like—" Something huge and unclear appears before the astonished Goody Builder, causing him to ask, "This?" Good Builder blinks, thinking, "I couldn't do it, but everyone else?" He smiles brightly, mentally thanking his comrades for everything. His face contorts into a desperate cry of "No!" when he sees a new threat. The narrative notes, this is the time during which a person determines sympathy. 486 seconds have passed since their meeting, and one of the swordsman's hands is already clutching Goody Builder. This was enough for the swordsman to be imbued with the spirit of the good builders and prepare a joint attack. One of the swordsmen launches Goody Builder like a living projectile right into the midst of the cooks. Suddenly, Cook's giant clawed paw rises above one of the fighting swordsmen. The swordsman turns around in shock at the new danger, exclaiming, "What?" Unfortunately for them, a huge cock looms in front of the trio, letting out an ominous coo. The good builder's signal also infuriated the cocks. Hendard, with a blog on his head, asks in amazement what it is. Before them towers a cock of incredible size, more like a dragon. The giant cock looks at them ominously, letting out a low cock. A scroll appears telling the story of the first dragon. This dragon was obsessed with fame and was afraid of being surpassed. So he decided to split his power. This is how cockatrices appeared, creatures related to dragons. The swordsman understands. This is not a dragon, but its power is undeniable. One of the swordsmen is determined to prove his strength, while the other tries to distract the monster. The swordsman, his face distorted, furiously shouts, "Die!" putting all his strength into the attack. Hendard looks forward in surprise, his powerful body tense. He touches his chest thoughtfully, contemplating the speed of his muscle growth compared to the good builders. A slight smile appears on his face as he continues his thought. And yet, Hendard recalls with pride how the newcomers diligently followed his instructions. He looks into the distance, noting that 3 months have passed since the start of training. Memory. At first, his charges were weak and resembled whiny anchovies. He had to teach them everything step by step, like teaching babies to walk. They tried to surrender, but it was only a temporary weakness. Gathering all their will, they stood firm, and none of them retreated from their goal. Hendard is proud of his students, feeling their success as his own. He remembers his master with longing, wondering if everything is okay with him. A sudden thought occurs to him. His master also disappeared at a similar age. The thoughts are interrupted by the desperate cry of a comrade calling for Hansel. Hansel turns around in surprise at the approaching messenger. The breathless fighter delivers terrible news. The Koki have evolved and everyone is in danger. The messenger's face is distorted with fear. If this continues, everyone could die. Hansel sternly orders him to shut up and point towards the threat, his aura flaring. A frightened comrade points the way to the battlefield with a trembling hand. The system issues a warning. Energy exceeding normal contractile muscles has been detected. The system prompts Hansel to cancel the skill True Contractile Muscles, his body pulsating with energy. Hansel, with sparkling green eyes, furiously asks how they dared to touch his children. The system confirms the skill's cancellation, and Hansel prepares for a powerful jump. Hansel pushes off the ground with such force that a crater forms beneath him. Enveloped in blue energy, he rushes forward at lightning speed, turning into a blur. The place where he jumped is completely destroyed. Residual energy is still visible. A powerful explosion occurs in the distance, signaling Hansel's arrival on the battlefield. One of the fighters looks hopefully at the bright flash in the sky, whispering, "Hansel Nim." Hansel is already attacking the giant cook, stabbing him in the back while the others try to survive. The silver-haired swordsman orders Hendard to distract the monster so he can deliver the killing blow. Hendard uses a secret technique, raising a cloud of sand with his sword. He shouts to Blog that he has bought time to escape with the help of dust. The Blog responds by criticizing Hendard, saying he should have attacked instead of wasting time worrying about Liper. The giant cockatrice attacks, knocking Liper aside with a "How" cry. Hendard falls backwards, struck down or knocked down. Someone's gloved hand makes an approving gesture. "Good job!" Hendard wonders why Blog is giving him the thumbs up instead of fighting. Liper, despite the situation, gives Hendard a bloody thumbs up, encouraging him. A massive, multi-headed cockatrice raises its giant clawed paw to strike. Hendard runs away, shouting at Blog that they can't win even if they try their best. The Blog screams at Hendard that it is too early to give up, although he considers evasion impossible. Good builders demonstrate secret bodybuilding techniques in preparation for something big. They form a giant living pyramid. The ultimate secret technique, comprehensive support kit. An incredible pyramid of bodies meets the attack of a giant cockatrice, which lets out a furious screech. One of the fighters in the pyramid calls for faith in the comrade who went after Hansel. He is convinced that Hansel Nim will arrive before their inevitable fall. The fighter desperately shouts for everyone to hold on, relying on faith in their friend. The cockatrice's huge clawed paw slams down on the living structure. The monster's blow shatters the pyramid into pieces, scattering the fighters in all directions. Hendard anxiously asks one of his fallen comrades if he is okay, but he only groans in pain. The defeated fighter realizes with horror that his troubles are just beginning. A giant cockatrice rises above the fallen, preparing to attack again. One of the monster's heads lets out a deafening cry, its eyes blazing with rage. A powerful energy blast falls from the sky, incinerating everything around. Amidst the chaos, one of the survivors notices a familiar silhouette in the distance and screams with joy. The fighter, through the pain, thanks Hansel for his timely arrival, believing in salvation. But it is not Hansel who emerges from the dust, but an unexpected figure, a former lord with a flaming hand. The surviving good builders look at the unexpected guest in complete bewilderment. The former lord watches the distant explosion with a mysterious look, his eye glowing. Another colossal explosion occurs in the direction where Hansel was just supposed to appear. A huge cloud of dust rises above the forest, hiding the effects of the powerful impact. Hansel lands in a deep crater, clearly missing his destination. With annoyance, he realizes that he jumped in completely the wrong direction. Hansel sees a terrifying sight. He is far from the battle, and Koki is already here. Meanwhile, the former lord exhales calmly, his eye glowing ominously. He looks at the giant cockatrice with disdain, asking, "Is that all you can do?" The good builders are amazed to hear the strength of the new ghoul lord-like monster. A small creature next to them giggles, suggesting that the good builders take a closer look. The creature proudly declares that this man is their boss, Lord Ghoul. The giant cockatrice's heads look at each other in confusion, not understanding what is happening. Lord Ghoul looks at Cockatrice with a defiant expression, hinting at a cunning plan. The ghoul's subordinates are delighted to realize that their lord has thought of everything. One of the ghouls, with a shining eye, confidently exclaims, "Exactly!" He shouts that he has distracted the monsters and calls for Hansel to strike. The ghoul desperately cries out to the heavens, begging Hansel to appear. The other ghouls become despondent, not understanding why Hansel doesn't come. The ghoul's glowing eye goes out and he looks for Hansel in confusion. The action moves back 6 hours to a deserted ghoul village. One of the ghouls comes out of the dwelling, complaining about the long absence of hunters. His stomach growls with hunger and he wonders if he should go get some food himself. Ghoul decides to go hunting, confident that Cockatrice is dead and there is no danger. However, danger lurked. 5 minutes earlier, another ghoul had been brutally attacked. Hearing the screams, the ghoul looks around anxiously, suspecting that it is the good builders. His face distorted with rage, he menacingly asks who dared to touch him and Hansel's subordinates. With a glowing eye, he declares that only he and Hansel are allowed to bully the good builders and charges forward. His hand grips the stone with a death grip, showing determination. Unlike the ghouls, Lord Ghoul did not participate in the training of bodybuilders, who worked hard under supervision. The Lord watched their training, his hands glowing purple and his status remaining unchanged. The riddle of his authority. Were trained good builders weaker than Lord Ghoul? The answer: no. Has the law of the jungle changed? No. The pyramid of power shows Lord Ghoul at the top, laughing at the others. Lord Ghoul explains that there is a reason why he is so strong, and notices that the weight seems to have become lighter. Forced to constantly use the weight skill, Lord Ghoul unknowingly brought it to its maximum and became stronger. His hand, enveloped in a purple aura, activates the skill Heavy Strike of the first level out of 10. With a wild cry, Lord Ghoul launches a huge energy-charged stone. A purple projectile flies towards its target at incredible speed, leaving a bright trail behind it. Lord Ghoul turns his attack on the smaller Kokorix with fury, shouting, "Die, you feathered bastards!" Now his Heavy Strike skill had reached level 10, concentrating colossal power. A giant clot of purple energy rushes down, foreshadowing destruction. A powerful explosion hits the Kokorix, scattering them in all directions. The action returns to the present. One of the ghouls in despair thinks that they are doomed. One of the ghouls admires the Lord's strength, comparing him to Hansel. Lord Ghoul, flattered, mutters something under his breath, surrounded by Kokoriki. He decides that his strength is an innate talent that distinguishes him from ordinary ghouls. Lord Ghoul challenges the Kokoriki with a battle cry, promising to defeat them all. Suddenly, one of the Kokariks attacks the Lord, catching him off guard. The two ghouls realize in horror that this is definitely the end for them. Meanwhile, Hansel sadly apologizes to Handert and Leiper for his seriousness. Leiper, wounded, seriously replies that they weren't joking. Hansel chuckles, surprised at their ability to joke around even in this situation. He says thoughtfully that perhaps he will only be able to relax in the afterlife. Handert declares with determination that this last moment with friends will not be lonely. Good builders tense their muscles, ready to use every cell in their body. Their steel muscles gleam as they vow to fight to the end. The fighters express their gratitude for the lessons they have learned as they rush into the attack. They remember the hard training as they rush towards the Kokoriki. Handert, Hansel, and Leiper rush forward, having a taste of true power. Facing the dark silhouettes of the Kokariks, Handert thinks about his next life. Good builders fearlessly rush towards the enemy, hoping for new training. With a desperate cry, they beg to be taught again in the next life. Handert and Leiper find themselves in the thick of the battle, surrounded by enemies and allies. Muffled thuds and whistles can be heard through the thicket of the forest. An exhausted ghoul lands in front of Hansel, smoking. Gasping for breath, the ghoul says, "Hansel Nim, our subordinates." Hansel listens in horror to the ghoul's plea. "Save them." The ghoul's hand falls powerlessly. He whispers, "Please, stop." Hansel's calm skill activates, but is immediately cancelled due to overwhelming emotions. Hansel's eyes flash, his heart pounding wildly, suppressing the skill. The good builders rush furiously towards Kokarik, who is visible ahead. One of the ghouls finds himself caught between two fires when the Kokoriki attack from the flanks. The ghoul turns around in shock, not believing his eyes. "What?" Two ghouls watch in bewilderment as the Kokorikis walk away. Meanwhile, Hansel, tensing his muscles, resolutely steps forward. His powerful figure approaches, shaking the ground beneath his feet. Hansel stands in front of the Kokarik flock, activating the skill Calm and ordering them to stop. The cockatiels look at each other in surprise, not understanding what is happening. Hansel's face contorts with rage. He claims to be calmer than ever, but his emotions are running high. The system announces the skill Calm has been cancelled for the day due to overwhelming feelings. From above, you can see a multitude of ghouls rushing to the scene. One of the ghouls, carrying a wounded comrade, feels the vibrations and realizes it's Hansel Nim. The wounded ghoul, barely conscious, asks with difficulty who this Hansel Nim is. Ghoul explains that Hansel is their leader with the most sensitive muscles, but the injured man demands more details. With a sly smile, the ghoul promises that it is better to see Hansel in action than to listen to stories. The wounded man insists on a brief account while his comrades continue their rapid run. The ghoul carrying his friend begins to explain. Well, basically, looking ahead. He proudly introduces Hansel as the new ghoul lord, but the wounded man is still confused. Hansel stands with his back to the three Kokoriki with his eyes glowing, ready to attack. One of the Kokoriks, with a furious cry, brings down its massive paw on Hansel. Hansel's palm flares brightly, preparing to meet the blow of the approaching enemy. Hansel easily throws aside the giant Kokorik while performing a one-arm dumbbell press. The discarded Kokarik flies away into the sky with a scream, leaving the other Kokariks in complete amazement. The two Kokoriks look at Hansel in amazement, their eyes shining with surprise. Hansel is left alone as two powerful blows shake the ground behind him. The remaining two Kokoriks fly into the air, tumbling under the force of Hansel's blow. Hansel's powerful attack leaves behind only a blurry trail and a flash of energy. The giant birds land with a crash, raising clouds of dust, and Hansel announces, "Military press." One of the Kokariks, trembling, says in bewilderment, "Cock!" not believing what is happening. Hansel shows off his power by performing -1, 2, 3, 4. Now Hansel finds himself under the huge Kokorik, straining every muscle to support its weight. Kokorik's face is contorted with horror and rage, his beak wide open in a silent scream. A multitude of dark paws descend upon Hansel, subjecting him to a vicious attack. Hansel calls standing barbell press as he is met with a hail of Kokorik's claws. A bright flash of energy erupts from beneath Hansel, pushing back the attack. With a powerful push, Hansel pushes away Kokorik's giant paw. The discarded Kokorik flies upward, and Hendred comments from below, "Low." Hansel flies into the air, performing a flying lunge on another Kokorik. He lands on the fallen enemies as another Kokorik lets out a dying scream. Hansel addresses the two stunned Kokorikas, talking about chest vibrations. His powerful chest vibrates as he explains that they have come to the right place. The Kokoriki look at Hansel in bewilderment as he suggests developing their pectoral muscles. With shining eyes, Hansel challenges, "Can you do that?" Hansel goes into CrossFit mode, starting with the Buffy test on a defeated Kokorik. He unleashes a powerful blow on the next Kokorik, who lets out a furious cry. Hansel's fist slams right into the bird's head, causing it to let out a distorted scream. Upon landing, Hansel sees the ominous silhouette of a bag with the words "Got" written on it appear behind him. His muscles swell to incredible proportions as he announces kettlebell swings. Hansel easily throws the giant Kokorik into the air, shouting, "Up!" Two huge Kokorikas crash to the ground, raising columns of dust. One of the defeated Kokoriks looks at what is happening in horror, not believing his eyes. Hansel demonstrates the jump squat while holding a massive log on his shoulders. With a powerful kick, he tosses the log, sending two more Kokoriks flying. The logs shatter into pieces, taking the Kokoriks with them under the influence of incredible force. Hansel, shrouded in a dark aura, announces, "Triceps curl!" A powerful blow throws Kokorik into the air, and he lets out a dying cry of "Quick!" The soul flies out of the defeated Kokorik while he lies unconscious on the ground. The surviving Kokorik looks in shock at the approaching crowd of ghouls. The wounded ghoul can't believe his eyes. "It can't be. This is your ghoul lord?" The ghouls look in amazement at the battlefield littered with fallen Kokoriki, asking if this is the power of one monster. Hansel moves quickly, his eyes glowing, his muscles tense to the limit. He admits to himself that he spent too much leg energy getting here. Hansel wonders how long she can maintain this form, realizing that giving up is not an option. Hansel stands in front of a huge bag of got while a ghoul behind him screams in despair that he will die like this. Ghoul, horrified, offers to die in Hansel's place, not wanting to let the former lord down. Hansel decides to finish everything with one powerful blow, concentrating all his strength. His fist slams into the target with incredible force, causing a powerful shockwave. Hansel flies into the air, performing a bench press on the monster's giant chest. Hansel reaches his peak form by shouting "1 rep max" and activates muscle recovery. His muscles are partially restored, but the system warns of an imbalance in the strength of his legs and torso. The warning intensifies. Legs weaken under the monstrous mass of Kokoriks above. Surrounded by Kokoriki, Hansel receives a final warning about imminent muscle damage. Many glowing hands touch his chest, trying to help or transfer energy. Hansel is surprised to see a crowd of ghouls shouting his name. The ghouls, their eyes shining, roar with delight. "Forward, for an extra approach!" Hansel, with her chest shining, resolutely replies, "Of course." A powerful combined strike produces a blinding flash of energy. Several headless Kokoriks fly away. Hansel thanks them for everything. On a field littered with fallen enemies and ghouls, Hansel declares the end of training. Lying on the ground, Hansel admits that he will miss the ghoul lord. The ghouls discuss how Hansel changed their former lord for the better. An exhausted Hansel, lying on the ground, asks who will help him get up. Hansel glances sideways. Something has caught his attention. Hansel shouts to the departing ghouls, "Don't turn away, ungrateful ones!" One of the ghouls turns around, thanking Hansel for his hard work as he threatens to kill them. Hansel looks at him in surprise, not understanding what is happening. The other ghouls also turn around, their faces expressing bewilderment. One of the ghouls explains that he came late because he was feeling unwell and slept a little. Hansel and the other ghouls pounce on their offending comrade with furious cries. The ghouls pile on top of one, and Hansel shouts from above that he will actually kill him. Lying on a pile of ghouls, Hansel smiles as the one below greets him as the Ghoul Lord. The camera pans out to show a view of the Duchy of Vordo with its castle. At the castle, the woman listens in surprise to the report that Hansel single-handedly defeated all the Kokoriks. Count Vordo learns with disbelief that it was that youth who defeated the Kokoriks. The Count admits that the Ghoul Lord is no threat, but this guy is definitely dangerous. He fears that the monsters might show their fangs at any moment. The Duchess ponders what to do with Hansel and suddenly asks where Blog is. A frightened Blog stutters as a dark figure appears behind him. Someone's hand grips Blog's shoulder tightly, making him tremble. Several muscular guys surround Blog, feeling him up while he looks confused. An injured subordinate shouts at Hansel to ask if he is trying to harm the Blog. The Blog notes with amazement at Hansel's perfect posture as he continues to be examined. The subordinate attacks in rage, screaming for Blog to stop being treated like an object. Hansel asks his subordinate if he wants to become stronger while Blog screams in pain. Hansel's fist clenches, signaling decisive action. Hansel insistently asks if he ever thought about power as Blog is dragged away. With a beaming smile, Hansel suggests that his subordinate train together. The subordinate, completely confused, asks again, "Training? What is that?" The Blog cries out in despair that they had no choice but to give it away. The subordinates beg their mistress to save Blog from these monsters. The advisor suspects that it might be dark magic and doesn't want to take any risks. He assures them that their mistress will not act recklessly. The lady decisively declares, "No, today we will teach them a lesson." The lady, shrouded in a golden aura, orders the two to prepare for battle. The advisor shouts at them in irritation, wondering why they are hesitating and giving in to their emotions. The man lowers his hand, seemingly resigned to their decision. The girl angrily declares that they crossed the line by touching her student. The advisor turns around abruptly, his cloak fluttering with the unexpected movement. The lady resolutely leads Hensard and Leiper to rescue Blog from Ali Mine. Meanwhile, in the Ghoul village, Hansel announces to the newcomer that the training will begin with squats. A subordinate asks in bewilderment what squats are. Hansel offers to teach him with a confident smile, calling him over. Hansel demonstrates the exercise, explaining that squats strengthen the thigh muscles. Hansel sympathetically asks Blog if he wants to lie down, seeing his shaky state. The Blog, breathing heavily, stops, unable to continue. Hansel patiently explains the importance of keeping your weight on your hips to avoid injury. He commands Blog to spread his legs hip-width apart, and he hesitantly obeys. Blog diligently performs the squat, following Hansel's instructions on technique. Hansel demonstrates how to properly lift using the power of the hips. After praising the newcomer, Hansel asks if he has previously studied fencing. With a sly smile, Hansel suggests that Blog repeat the squat. Hansel tells Blog to raise his hands, intending to place a makeshift barbell on them. The Blog struggles to hold the heavy load, feeling its muscles tense. Blog's fingers dig into the makeshift barbell, trying to maintain his balance. The Blog, with a distorted face and glowing eyes, is struggling to hold up its weight. Hansel shouts menacingly, "Don't lose your posture, squat!" With a crazy grin, Hansel continues to command, "Squat!" The Blog performs a squat under a huge weight with incredible effort. Hansel nods approvingly as Blog squats and the ghouls around him repeat the exercise. Hansel is impressed, noting that Blog maintains his posture even with that weight, and counts the reps. Hansel's eyes sparkle. As I thought, I wasn't wrong about him. An exhausted Blog breathes heavily, and Hansel proclaims, "This is what powerlifting is." Hansel asks Blog if he followed him to become stronger, to which Blog nods with difficulty. The Blog desperately screams that it wants to be strong like its friends. Hansel calmly replies that Blog, alas, will not be able to become as strong. The Blog hangs its head in sadness, admitting that Hansel was right. He honestly says that someone like him will never catch up with a genius, no matter how hard he tries. But Blog is grateful to Hansel because he will at least teach him to stand on his own feet. Hansel smiles encouragingly, promising that Blog will become strong in its own way to protect its friends. With a warm smile, Hansel states that Blog has a rare talent. The Blog is shaking with excitement, whispering that this is the first time. He was recognized for the first time, and Hansel jokes so that he doesn't cry and lose muscles. Suddenly, a system message appears. Hawkeye's skill has been upgraded to level 3. The subordinate asks Hansel in surprise why he brought the cock chicks. Hansel, surrounded by ghouls and their chicks, explains that mindless hunting will lead to their extinction. With a determined smile, he declares that they must prevent the cock people from becoming extinct. The one-eyed ghoul notes that koki grow quickly, so breeding will not be a problem. He adds that there are few monsters in alley mine that can defeat the cocks, but looks worried. Ghoul fears that if the koki evolve, only Hansel will be able to cope with them, to which he asks doubtfully, "And you won't be able to?" The subordinate freezes in confusion, not knowing what to answer to a direct question. Hansel, with a sly grin and sparkling eyes, repeats his question, clearly expecting an answer. Ghoul, visibly nervous, mutters that perhaps they can manage after all. Hansel pats him on the shoulder encouragingly, accusing him of underestimating his strength, and the ghoul apologizes. At the ghoul training ground, Hansel commands, "Use your main thigh muscle to support the weight." Hansel continues counting with a smile, demonstrating perfect barbell squat technique. A clap of hands and a cloud of talc rises into the air, preparing for a new approach. Blog squats with a heavy barbell while a ghoul nearby casts a spell, increasing the weight. The skill, heavy blunt weapon 110. The one-eyed ghoul asks Blog anxiously, "Are you ready?" The Blog resolutely shouts, "I'm ready, let's go," and pushes its feet hard into the ground. The ghoul announces with a mad grin, "Okay, let's go," and his aura flares up. The weight on the Blog bar instantly doubles under the effect of magic. Heavy blunt weapon X2. Blog's face distorts with inhuman tension, and he lets out a furious roar. The ghoul holds out his hands, encouraging, "Come on, you can do it!" The Blog lets out a wild roar, his eyes glowing and his body enveloped in a purple aura. Hansel smiles as he counts his reps while the ghouls around him do barbell squats in sync. One of the ghouls, grimacing in pain, strains under the weight, continuing the exercise. Someone's hand is gripping the hilt of a sword, from which a bright flash emanates. Suddenly, a system message appears. Invasion. And a silhouette appears on the training ground. A powerful blow shakes the ground, sending the training ghouls flying. The ghouls come to in the midst of dust and debris, one of them groaning in pain. The stunned ghoul asks Blog what happened as he tries to get up. The ghoul looks up in confusion, trying to figure out the source of the attack. A girl appears in front of them, smiling and asking if they were the ones who kidnapped her student. The girl's powerful blast of light shakes the ground, scattering debris. She frowns in confusion, her sword still vibrating from the attack she made earlier. Hansel meets her glowing sword with his chest. "We're just training, what happened?" The girl smirks, surprised. "Wow, he blocked my sword with his body?" Blood runs down Hansel's hand and he becomes gloomy. "This old woman, she is dangerous." The girl angrily asks Leiper and Henderd, pointing at Hansel, "Is that him?" They excitedly shout to Blog, "Yes, it's him! Blog, our master is here to save you." Leiper and Henderd call out to their master in panic, "Here!" The girl turns to Hansel. "Sorry for interrupting your training, but stealing other people's students is not good." Hansel asks Blog in surprise, "What's wrong, Blog? Have you had a trainer yet?" Blog, visibly nervous, tries to explain something to Hansel. He stutters, unable to find words under the intense gaze. Hansel, crossing his arms over his powerful chest, asks with a smile, "Exercise is better than fencing, right?" He encourages Blog, "Be honest, why are you hesitating?" Blog hangs his head silently, a bead of sweat rolling down his cheek. Finally, Blog bows to the girl and confesses, "Forgive me, master, I like exercises more than fencing." He adds, addressing his former mentor, "I'm sorry we made you go all this way." The girl frowns when Blog declares, "I have a new master now." She smiles wryly. "Really? Then I have nothing to do." Suddenly the girl pulls out a sword, which flares with a bright yellow aura. The girl with glowing eyes declares that she will take Blog by force. She charges forward, her old-fashioned sword gleaming as it points at Hansel. Hansel tensed his muscles, his body glowing, preparing to take the blow in a dramatic pose. He shows off his power, his muscles bulging with strength under the red aura. The girl looks at Hansel with annoyance, her pride hurt by such defensiveness. There is only a scratch on Hansel's chest. The girl is surprised by such little damage. Hansel asks Blog if he wants a body like his, and Blog enthusiastically agrees. The girl offers Hansel a competition. The winner will take Blog. She adds defiantly that the winner's martial arts will be stronger. Hansel corrects her with a smile. Exercise is not a martial art, but bodybuilding. The girl quips that Hansel killed the cockatrice for protein, not in combat. She asks with a smirk if this means that exercise is useless in battle. Hansel's face contorts with anger, the veins bulging on his forehead. The girl mockingly asks what the point of having a body is if you can't fight with it. With a big smile, she declares, "In other words, it's garbage!" A powerful red aura envelops Hansel, shaking everything around him. He activates the cocklegs mode, his muscles bulge, and he promises to show the power of the exercises. A system message confirms activation of the cock's legs compression muscle mode. The ghoul spectators are curious to see who will be stronger, Hansel or this girl. One of the ghouls suggests simply comparing their sizes, hinting at an obvious winner. Leiper and Henderd warn that their master is one of the 10 strongest on the continent. The ghouls swallow nervously. Hansel activates the skill Hawkeye to analyze the opponent. He sees her stats and wonders how she was able to hurt him with such modest muscle mass. Hansel looks at the scratch in confusion, since a normal sword shouldn't have damaged his muscles. The girl asks Hansel in a condescending tone what kind of martial art he teaches. She smirks and declares that her fencing is an art that cuts down enemies with chi, demonstrating a powerful kick to the ground. Hansel barely dodges the attack, the ground beneath him cracking with incredible force. The girl confidently states that her martial art is capable of cutting enemies into pieces using chi. She lunges at Hansel, promising to teach him some lessons as a more experienced fighter. Hansel blocks the attack, his eyes glowing red as he screams, "What are you talking about?" The girl, breathing heavily, asks if he knows why he is considered an outsider. Hansel swings his fist in anger, shouting, "I don't care!" She deflects, explaining that his mana is red. The girl flies into the air, dodging the powerful attack. Hovering above him, she adds, "The closer to the demons, the redder the mana."
She points out his fighting style with a challenge.
The girl states that humans don't have body-changing techniques and attacks, power leg press. Hansel barely dodges, the ground beneath him cracking from the force of the blow. He angrily shouts that the more effort you put into your body, the more it changes. Isn't that obvious? The girl states that such a body change is only possible for outsiders like Hansel. She claims that this is how humans should use mana ki, her sword once again becoming enveloped in a yellow aura. The swordswoman activates the combat skill. Mountain of swords and forest of sabers. A multitude of shining blades rain down on the surprised Hansel. With a confident look, she explains that people use chi to make up for deficiencies and fight. A powerful explosion throws Hansel back, and he lets out a cry of pain. Coughing up blood, Hansel hears that his martial art is useless to humans. The girl haughtily asks how his pathetic art can defeat a sword technique created for destruction. Hansel is defeated, and she asks if his previous opponents were in stagnation. Rising with difficulty, he wonders how much stronger her opponents become the next day. Hansel answers with a grin. Why would he even think about it? The girl states that her opponents simply do not live to see the next day to become stronger, activating the skill again. Hansel's face tenses up. He's clearly preparing for something incredible. He starts posing, showing off his double biceps from the front, his muscles gleaming. Hansel strikes a striking pose, his body enveloped in a golden aura of power. He shouts loudly that people training in the gym always will defeat those who have become stronger than them the very next day. Hansel roars, 10 reps, as his body fills with strength. His power increases many times over. His eyes glow red. He becomes the embodiment of strength. Hansel grows to a gigantic size, looming over the girl, and declares that it is now his turn to teach. Blog is calmly having a snack when 2 people approach him from behind with a question. He turns around in surprise, recognizing Leiper and Henderd, who look guilty. Leiper sheepishly explains that they had already contacted their master, thinking that Blog had left. He continues, fearing the Blog's wrath for their foolish act. The Blog is genuinely puzzled as to why it would be angry with them. He is reminded that he left them because of their persistence. The Blog denies this, saying that he stayed to study with Hansel and will return later. Leiper and Henderd are beside themselves with joy, unable to believe their ears. Burning with curiosity, they vied with each other to ask Blog about his new martial art. The Blog modestly offers them to come with him and asks the former lord for help. The former lord agrees, confused, while someone poses in the background. The Blog asks the trio if they remember the main lesson of the fencing master. Leiper shouts out excitedly, "Me, lower body!" And the Blog confirms he's right. The Blog announces that they will be training their quads using squats. He explains that Hansel told him to master the technique first for safety, but for fun. The former lord wonders with concern if it is dangerous to use weights right away. The blog assures them with a smile that it will assist them. Meanwhile, the fencer struggles to hold on to Hansel's giant finger, which is keeping count. The girl resists the pressure with all her might as Hansel counts to 5. She yells at Hansel in rage, asking why he removed the power. Hansel explains that he did not remove the strength but rather accumulated it, talking about the contraction and stretching of muscles. The fencer hears Leiper and Henderd groaning as someone keeps count. Her eyes are wide open in horror. She doesn't believe what's happening. The blog literally crushes Leiper and Henderd into the ground during squats. The fencer is in shock. She screams in panic. "Time out! What kind of training is this?" Hansel calmly explains that these are forced high-rep squats, part of the program. The bright-eyed fencer says she wants to incorporate his methods into her training. Hansel, gradually shrinking, asks in surprise, "Really?" Returning to his normal size, he asks what she saw in this training. The girl, blushing, babbles about hot and sticky passion and the happiness of sweaty men. Hansel and the fencer's hands clasp tightly, symbolizing their unexpected unity through training. Hansel turns to the girl with delight, his eyes shining with curiosity. He admires her forearm muscles, asking about her workouts, and she smirks at his interest. Hansel, trembling with impatience, joyfully exclaims that she will tell him everything. The girl, already on horseback, explains that her hobby is swinging a sword, and she also has a question. She asks doubtfully if it is okay for him to share such valuable training methods for free. Hansel replies with a smile that the more people train, the better, so it's okay. The swordswoman asks him why he thinks so as they continue on their way, accompanied by warriors. Hansel dreamily lists the various types of training, foreseeing their development and spread. He hopes that the culture of exercise will spread to every corner of the world. The fencer smiles and remarks that Hansel is funnier than she thought. She offers Hansel her help in the future, and he accepts the offer with delight. At night, by the fire, the former lord approaches Hansel with a serious conversation. Blog looks up from his food in surprise when he hears Lord address Hansel. The former lord warns Hansel of severe discrimination in his homeland. He explains that there is prejudice against different races, magic and non-believers, revering only swordsmen. The lord is worried that Hansel and the good builders may suffer because of these prejudices. The blog, hearing this, is alarmed to realize the seriousness of the potential problem. The former lord suggests that Hansel think it over carefully, and Hansel pats him on the shoulder encouragingly. Hansel looks away thoughtfully, considering Lord's words while Blog watches questioningly. Blog looks at the horse feed with curiosity, scooping up a handful. He is ecstatic when he recognizes the coarse texture, the main ingredient in the legendary oatmeal. A single grain of oat shines in his fingers like a treasure. The blog is horrified that such a valuable carbohydrate resource is going to horses and begins to eat it itself. Two men watch in disgust as Blog eats cattle feed, calling him a savage. One of them scornfully remarks that monsters even have low standards when it comes to food. Suddenly, BODYBUILDER appears, pointing at them and warning that the monster might be offended. BODYBUILDER offers them to try a dish he made by mixing their food, even though it was meant for him. The men look at the delicious dish in surprise, noting its pleasant aroma. One of them raises a spoonful of food to his mouth, distrustfully, ready to try it. The men taste the food in shock, their faces distorted with surprise. One of them cries with delight, feeling the spicy and warm taste. Another one exclaims with tears in his eyes that the fiery taste has restored his appetite. It's a miracle. BODYBUILDER offers to teach them the recipe if they stop insulting monsters, and they enthusiastically agree. That evening, by the campfire, Hansel approaches the swordswoman, whom he learns is named Rion. Hansel reminds Rion of her promise to do him a favor, and she confirms. He shows her a handful of oats, declaring that he wants to have these grains. Rion grins and assumes it's cattle feed, since Blog has spoken of his love for farming. Hansel replies with a beaming smile that they want to eat it themselves. Rion is surprised but doesn't mind, although she feels a little bad about feeding them fodder. The good builders whisper that Hansel could ask Rion for something better than cattle feed. Hansel asks again with displeasure what they just said. Rion confirms their words, offering Hansel more significant help. She is willing to replace their tents with houses or provide them with armor and clothing kits. Good builder, holding a piece of meat, wonders why they need food when there is protein, which Hansel loves so much. Hansel furiously shouts that this is not the case at all. He explains that excess protein is bad for your health, especially your liver. Hansel adds that the right amount of carbohydrates helps release explosive power. He praises oats, calling them the king of grains for their slow digestion and nutritional value. Hansel passionately asks if there could be a better favor than asking for oats. Ryan stands in puzzled silence as Hansel speaks passionately about oats, while the guard next to him looks confused. The good builders tremble with anticipation, their muscular bodies tense in anticipation of new strength. One of the good builders clenches his fist resolutely, ready for new achievements thanks to oats. Good builders scream in ecstasy about muscle growth and glycogen, fully believing in the power of oats. One of the warriors suggests that oats will help them defeat even General Ryan, inspiring the others. Two men who previously despised Blog decide to try the oats too, not wanting to give in to the monsters. One of them begins to eat the horse feed with determination, while the former lord and the other warrior watch with doubt. Everyone rushes to the feeding trough, greedily devouring the oats in the hope of gaining incredible strength. However, after trying raw oats, everyone immediately starts spitting. It turns out to be disgusting to taste. The former lord and his companion watch this scene with disgust, covering their faces. Hansel struggles to hold back his vomiting and is advised to spit out the oats, as even the good builders couldn't eat them. The Blog happily devours raw oats, praising their crisp texture and taste. Hansel is amazed by Blog's talent for food, believing that he will quickly become stronger and inspiring him. Ryan, smiling, admits to Hansel that she didn't understand his passionate speech, but she sees how much he wants oats. She confidently promises to convince the Count to get him the grain he wants. Hansel shouts in delight that Ryan is the best while the good builders in the background are still suffering from the raw oats. The guards on the castle walls trumpet the return of General Ryan and order the gates to be opened. The huge gates slowly open and Ryan rides inside on horseback, leading Hansel and Blog behind him. Hansel and Blog follow Ryan through the gate, Blog visibly nervous as he looks around. Goody Builder reminds Hansel of his warnings while Blog covers his mouth in alarm. Goody Builder whispers to Hansel that this country is full of the worst discriminators on the continent, judging by their sullen faces. Hansel and Blog walk through the darkness, surrounded by judgmental glances and evil whispers. The good builders notice the crowd's sidelong glances at them, their faces tense. The builder monsters march in formation, sensing the hostility of the people around them. Hansel tries to cheer up the good builders with a smile, saying that they are looked at because of their cool bodies. The good builders look at each other sheepishly and begin to proudly show off their muscles. The Blog exclaims with annoyance that this is not the case at all. One of the good builders lets out a powerful exhalation, preparing to show himself. Good builders shout hi-yap and strike spectacular poses, shining and flexing their muscles. The crowd looks at the shining good builders with bewilderment and condemnation. The Blog is puzzled as to why the monsters are having so much fun marching towards Verdo Castle and posing. In the throne room of Verdo Castle, the Count asks if Hansel will leave after teaching them how to train. The Count asks with disdain whether Hansel really wants cattle feed as a reward. Hansel happily corrects, it's not just food, it's oatmeal. The Count looks angrily at Hansel, considering his inferior being rude. The Count explains that he let the monsters into the castle only at the request of his General Ryan. He adds menacingly that without Ryan's intercession, Hansel would already be riddled with arrows. Ryan bows deeply to the Count, thanking him for his kindness. The Count suddenly exclaims loudly, "So!" attracting everyone's attention. The Count orders Hansel from the throne not to cause trouble and to leave after teaching them how to train. Hansel enthusiastically agrees, offering to train the Count himself after his workday. The Count turns away with displeasure, throwing out a short, "Okay." The Count watches Hansel and Blog leave, mentally calling Hansel an impudent fellow. Left alone, the Count wearily sinks onto the throne, covering his face with his hand. The Count reflects that he was worried about General Ryan's excessive popularity among the commoners. A sinister smile appears on the Count's face. He believes that everything is going according to his plan. The Count suddenly jumps up and loudly orders to call Tootle's mercenary detachment. With a sly squint, the Count thinks that General Ryan's guest will destroy her. Meanwhile, on the training ground, soldiers are diligently practicing spear strikes. A young man announces to the soldiers that training will be stopped for a special lesson. The instructor introduces Hansel as a special teacher from General Ryan, calling him the Ghoul Lord. The soldiers whisper among themselves, wondering why the monster would train them. The instructor sternly warns that disobeying the general's orders will have consequences. Hansel greets everyone with a smile, introducing himself as Special Teacher Hansel. He doesn't like the looks the soldiers give him and orders everyone to immediately assume a prone position. One of the warriors with food is perplexed, and the other advises him to obey the order. Hansel, already doing push-ups, furiously shouts at them to lie down, calling them assholes. Hansel starts doing push-ups, and the good builders behind him immediately take up a combat plank. He yells in rage at the still-standing soldiers, asking if they heard his command. The soldiers reluctantly drop to the ground, one calling the other a traitor for submitting. One of the warriors is perplexed, while the other, grinning, finds the situation funny. This same soldier loudly complains, "Are they really going to listen to some monster?" The instructor fiercely reminds that the general's order is to listen to a special teacher, just like her. The disobedient warrior points to the instructor, asking if he agrees with the general's decision. Hansel glares at him from the plank as he doubts that the monster is equal to the general. The instructor, arms crossed, silently and discontentedly looks at what is happening. The rebel calls on the other soldiers to stand up and not lose their human pride in front of the monster. Hansel, doing push-ups, calmly asks what the problem is, and the instructor reminds him of the absolute nature of the orders. The soldier tells Hansel that humans don't obey orders from monsters, and that's the first problem. Secondly, the rebel states that their training is no substitute for fencing. And finally, he draws his sword, shouting that people do not want the barbaric methods of monsters. Blog stops Hansel, saying that he will solve the problem with words. The blog suggests to the soldiers that he, as a human, will give orders, solving the first problem. Secondly, the blog offers a sparring match between a monster and a human to compare methods. As for the last problem, the blog, with a sly grin, suggests determining, is training barbaric, looking at the result of sparring? The blog turns to the good builders, loudly asking if they are ready. The good builders respond in unison, "Yes, sir," beaming and flexing their muscles. Hansel thinks with a proud smile, "My children." The rebellious soldier agrees to Blog's proposal, seeking approval from the instructor. The instructor nods silently, giving his consent for the duel. The warrior volunteers from the people and asks who will come out from the monsters. One of the good builders steps forward decisively, accepting the challenge. The rebel grins maliciously, anticipating an easy victory over the stupid monsters. He boastfully declares that he will show the full power of Tootle's mercenary squad. With a wild cry of "Die, monster!" and his tongue hanging out, the mercenary rushes into the attack. The good builder calmly says, "One-arm dumbbell press," as he prepares to meet the blow. Goody Builder's powerful counterattack sends the mercenary flying. Blog runs up to the fallen man, relieved to see that he is still alive. Hansel scolds Goody Builder for being too harsh while his comrade helps the defeated mercenary. Hansel casually waves off the apology, and Goody Builder is confused about what they want from him. Hansel demands the soldiers' submission after their defeat, and the good builders reluctantly agree. The defeated mercenary does not surrender, activating a hidden combat skill. Shrouded in a blue aura, the mercenary with the burning eye rushes to attack again. He furiously shouts that the monsters will not command them, swinging his sword. The good builder looks in amazement at the sudden attack of the enraged soldier. In response, Good Builder activates the powerful skill, Heavy Blunt Strike X10, his hands flaring with energy. The attacking mercenary watches in horror as his sword flies towards the crushing force. Suddenly, red beams from the eyes of another fighter intercept the attack, saving Goody Builder. Hansel, his scarlet eyes sparkling, takes Goody Builder aside. A light push to the chest and Goody Builder is stopped by his mentor. Hansel himself attacks the mercenary, sending him flying. The mercenary crashes into the wall with a scream, dropping his useless sword. The defeated fighter's face is distorted with pain. He is barely able to catch his breath. Meanwhile, Blog approaches the training ground gates alone. The instructor greets Hansel with a joyful smile, asking about his condition. The soldiers behind her immediately begin to whisper, "It was definitely magic." The two warriors openly express their distrust, declaring that monsters cannot be trusted. Suddenly, someone's sword plunges into the ground in front of the outraged soldiers. Suddenly, the general appears, demanding an explanation from the instructor about what is happening. The instructor and Hansel find themselves in front of an angry general. The instructor reports that the soldiers violated orders, provoking a fight. He adds that the losing soldiers accuse the monsters of using magic. The general sternly asks Hansel if he really used magic. Hansel strongly denies using any magical techniques. The general relays Hansel's words to the instructor, who still has doubts. The instructor hesitantly asks if the general will really believe the monster. Suddenly, an important gentleman appears on the site, declaring that he heard something incredible. The arrival asks curiously to tell him everything in more detail. The arriving feudal lord asks the general from above whose side he has chosen. The instructor quickly assures the lord that she is, of course, on the side of the people. She defiantly asks the feudal lord whose words he is listening to then. Hansel smiles and invites the lord to dismount and join the training. Bodybuilder tries to pull away a confused Hansel, whispering that this is inappropriate. The instructor tries to soften the feudal lord. "General, you know how much I value you." The lord replies with an icy grin that her guests are causing problems for his people. He points to the scene. One of our students was seriously injured. The feudal lord emphasizes that this is a very serious problem for his people. The ruler of the lands angrily declares that as a feudal lord he cannot ignore this. The feudal lord angrily points at the instructor, declaring, "As the ruler of the Verdo Duchy, I exiled General Ryan for 2 years. Hansel's face darkens with rage, foreshadowing a storm. The lord recoiled in horror, sensing the threat emanating from Hansel. The soldiers behind the instructor explode with shouts, demanding that the order be cancelled and that the monsters be dealt with. The feudal lord barely maintains his composure, thinking to himself, "I almost wet myself." The instructor apologizes to Hansel for not being able to take proper care of him. Hansel smiles and replies that things don't always go according to plan and asks not to worry. The instructor asks the lord to allow the monsters to stay for the promised 3 months, and he reluctantly agrees. The instructor looks resolutely into the distance, thinking, "Excellent. Preparation is complete." A barely noticeable confident grin appears on the instructor's face. The instructor shouts for everyone to be quiet, her face contorted with rage. She shames the soldiers. "How dare you disobey the orders of the feudal lord and call yourselves warriors?" One of the soldiers tries to object, but the instructor is adamant. "I said shut up!" The instructor accuses them of discrimination and insubordination, but sees a chance for change. She decides to make way for the new seeds, using the lord's order as an excuse to rest. The soldiers whisper, not believing that the general is leaving and wondering how this will change them. The instructor chuckles ominously, anticipating the fun that awaits him upon his return, which frightens the soldiers. The scene changes, deep night. The full moon illuminates the dark forest. A hooded guard appears on the fortress wall, tossing a bag of coins in his hand. He mutters that just a little more of this dirty work and he'll be able to quit. The guard looks dreamily at the village at night, wondering whether to open a flower shop for his daughter Belle. He coughs in embarrassment, blushing at his own thoughts about a peaceful life.
Taking out the medallion, he whispers to his daughter that he will be with her soon. She just needs to wait a little.
The medallion contains a family portrait. He, his wife, and little daughter with a doll. Suddenly, the image in the medallion bursts into flames, foreshadowing tragedy. Memory or vision, an entire village, including a church, is on fire. People are fleeing. Against the backdrop of the fire, eerie, bloody figures appear, emitting animal-like roars. A mysterious figure with blue hair looks down on the burning village, teeming with monsters. An ominous chuckle escapes the blue-haired man's lips as he watches the destruction. The blue-haired man with a crazy grin turns to someone named Eliza. "Long time no see, huh?" The blue-haired villain mockingly exclaims that their hometown is welcoming them well, while the shadow of a monster looms behind him. He extends his hand to Eliza, inviting her to dance in the midst of the chaos. Eliza, the girl in the hat, looks at the madman silently and with condemnation. Their hands touch, symbolizing an ominous union or the beginning of something terrible. A couple stands on a cliff, looking out over a burning village as an eerie melody plays. The scene changes. A young warrior says goodbye to a man at a bridge. He wishes her to take care of herself. The girl, addressing her companion named Blog, asks the reason for his appearance. The Blog explains with a smile that he has no training and decided to join the camp. He adds that he has received permission to keep her company for a while. The girl suggests visiting a certain place, but Blog fears the feudal lord's reaction. The girl confidently declares that she can handle it, and the Blog should not doubt her abilities. The Blog enthusiastically volunteers to take her to the mysterious place. The warrior praises Blog's strengthened voice, and he smiles shyly. Suddenly, the girl jokingly chases after Blog, yelling at him to run. The scene changes to a green slime crawling along a forest path. A muscular monster with glowing eyes quickly jumps on an unsuspecting slime. The monster, screaming "Hi-Ap," tenses his muscles, preparing for something. He merges with the slime, turning green, and crosses his arms in a battle cry. Two monsters are training with slimes, one of whom insists that his arm is perfectly fine. The monster happily announces that it was a joke and suggests that they go, since Hansel can show them a new exercise. General Ryan and Blog encounter monsters carrying slimes, and Ryan wonders why they want them. The monsters are surprised to recognize Blog and General Ryan. One wonders why Blog has already returned. Blog sheepishly replies to his elders that that's just how it happened, while Ryan smiles slyly. Ryan waves her hand with a smile, reminding him that her question about slimes remained unanswered. One of the monsters, holding a slime, explains that Hansel told them to bring them. General Ryan is puzzled. Why? Slimes aren't even good as medicine. The monster nervously invites Ryan to come with them so she can see for herself. The Blog asks if Hansel didn't tell Ryan anything while the monsters hesitate to answer. The Blog whispers to Ryan that BODYBUILDERs are not great at explaining things, leaving her skeptical. The monsters look at Ryan hopefully, and she, after thinking for a moment, agrees. Okay. The monsters wave happily at Hansel after spotting him and Ryan on the path. Hansel greets Blog and Ryan while the monster screams that the slimes are about to escape. Ryan explains his visit as curiosity, observing the bustle of monsters with slimes. General Ryan points his finger at Hansel, demanding an explanation about the slimes. Hansel believes that standard training for his trainees is not effective enough. He decided to create his own equipment for athletic training since there was no other. Ryan suggests that the slimes will serve as dummies for practicing fast sword strikes. Hansel clarifies that this is not fencing and asks the monsters to give him some slime. He begins the briefing. First, having obtained the slime, the monster brings the purple one. Hansel, with a battle cry of "Quap!" brings down a powerful blow on the unfortunate slime. Hansel deftly extracts a small ball from the slime. He explains that this ball can be pulled out and will recover in a few days. Hansel hands the ball to the monster, saying that it will be kept for regeneration. He then points out that they will make a hole in the center of the slime while the balloon is missing. Hansel emphasizes that slimes have excellent elasticity and contractility. He demonstrates how to stick your hands inside and stretch the slime before it shrinks. Voila! You have an elastic training band that keeps its shape. Hansel proudly shows the tape to Ryan, assuring that there are many exercises that can be done with it. He adds that the squeezing force depends on the color of the slime, and they are labeled for different training sessions, while the monster thanks him. Hansel asks again in surprise, "So suddenly, for what?" Ryan confesses to Hansel that she has suspected him for a long time. She thought his obsession with training was just a way to get closer to people. However, Ryan realized that Hansel was being completely honest with them. The general calls himself a failed mentor who failed to prevent discrimination in the duchy. That is why, according to her, she tolerates the antics of the feudal lord. Ryan believes that Hansel, unlike her, is capable of changing the country for the better. Hansel repeats thoughtfully, "Changes then." He suddenly tensed his muscles, claiming that this was his strong point, leaving Ryan confused. The monsters around Hansel begin to pose, and Ryan denies this interpretation of the changes. Ryan smiles mysteriously, hinting that real change is something else. Ryan points to a group of people, saying that's who she meant. The new arrivals are eagerly awaiting what the monster instructor will teach them, assuring them that they did not come because of loss. One of them grinningly asks Hansel to do without strange exercises like lying on his stomach. Ryan, standing next to Blog, formally asks Hansel if she can trust him with these children. Hansel looks puzzled and a little sweaty from such an unexpected proposal. He clenches his fist resolutely, accepting the challenge and responsibility. Hansel enthusiastically shouts, "Of course!" ready to accept the new students who immediately surround him. Meanwhile, elsewhere, horsemen ride swiftly through the darkness, heralding new events. A bearded rider in a cloak struggles to control his rearing white horse. The squad arrives at a burning village, and their commander orders them to dismount. The commander gloomily reports, their enemy is the living dead, zombies. It emphasizes the main threat. A zombie bite means an inevitable transformation. "Soldiers!" comes the call, and the commander's sword flies up. The squad, with a furious roar of "Forward!" rushes into the thick of things. The commander repeats for clarity. Their enemy is the undead, known as zombies, and their bite is fatal. He again orders to take care of the horses and be extremely careful because their lives are at stake. "Soldiers!" The battle cry sounds again, and the sword flashes, ready to strike. The squad rushes into the attack without hesitation, following their leader. A bird's eye view reveals a burning village where the battle is already raging. Suddenly, an alarmed figure appears, desperately shouting, "Bedorman, no, stop!" In the forest, a mysterious figure watches over Bedorman, surrounded by dogs, afraid to interfere with Ryan. The stranger frowns, irritated by the dog's incessant barking. Bedorman jumps up and runs away, shouting at the dogs, who whine pitifully. One dog runs away, and the other, wearing a mask, breathes heavily, remaining in place. Bedorman calms the masked dog, asking him to wait a little longer. With a creepy grin, Bedorman declares that all these zombies are just props. Meanwhile, at the training grounds of the Wardo Duchy, Hansel addresses the new recruits. Hansel, showing off his biceps, explains the importance of training specific muscle groups. Instructor Blog loudly orders everyone to warm up with bands and get ready for the bench press. Hansel smiles and suggests that Blog should do CrossFit instead of bench press today. The Blog asks in bewilderment, "What the hell is CrossFit?" Hansel explains that CrossFit is the Greg Glassman method, continuous, varied, high-intensity functional exercise. He adds that it trains different parts of the body, forcing them to work together like the edges of a hexagon. Hansel says working in groups with standards will create team spirit and bring out the competitiveness, which is ideal for them. He announces that the blog already has the lists of groups and encourages everyone to give it their all. The recruits rush towards new challenges with a roar of "Forward!" Meanwhile, two men in cloaks and hats furiously hack at an invisible enemy with swords. On the training ground, people and monsters lift heavy weights while shouting, "Ha!" One of the recruits performs a difficult barbell exercise with great effort. The other participants, not far behind, continue their intense training with heavy weights, shouting, "Ha!" Meanwhile, elsewhere, a warrior in a hat stabs a zombie with a sword while fighting off the undead. During training, two people simultaneously jump onto pedestals surrounded by a purple aura. One of the recruits, with a bag on his back, breathes heavily, looking ahead in confusion. He asks Hansel about a strange sound he has heard several times. Hansel explains that their feudal lord is personally participating in raids on zombies that have appeared in the surrounding villages. The recruit assumes that these are signals for help, since the enemy turned out to be stronger than expected. Suddenly he shouts, pointing, "Group 4, your body is collapsing, reduce the weight." Hansel thinks with a slight grin. As expected, he doesn't care. Elsewhere, a masked commander raises his sword and addresses a line of soldiers. "Excellent work, men," he announces. "According to intelligence, the enemy base is at the end of this path." The commander shouts furiously that they will destroy the enemy and bring peace to their country. A huge army of warriors responds to his call with a roar. Raising his hand again, the commander addresses his soldiers. His face distorts with a battle cry, "Attack!" The soldiers rush at the crowd of zombies, shouting, "Wah!" Two masked fighters with glowing swords cut through enemies. The advisor worriedly informs the Lord that they have gone too deep into the enemy ranks. The Lord smirks, claiming that zombies are stupid and can be defeated by strength and numbers. He points to his soldiers confidently pushing forward. "Soldiers, don't slow down!" the commander shouts. "War is above all, an onslaught!" From a bird's eye view, you can see the army roaring forward, ready to destroy the enemy. Bedorman, with a creepy grin, suggests that this is exactly what his opponents think. In the forest, surrounded by soldiers, Bedorman snaps his fingers, giving a sign. Suddenly, two huge monsters appear, throwing soldiers aside. The soldiers realize in horror. In front of them is the one who arranged all this, Bedorman. Bedorman, watching the battle, addresses the soldiers, pointing out their mistake. He teaches that in real war, spears are more effective than swords, which are only good for showing off. Bedorman gives the order, and his monsters rush into the attack with fury. He sarcastically points out how difficult it is to help an ally and stop an enemy rushing towards you in such a melee. One of the soldiers swings his sword in desperation, shouting the name Ben. Bedorman greets Vordo with a grin, noting that it has been a long time since they saw each other. Vordo grips the hilt of his sword tightly, preparing for the inevitable collision. Bedorman attacks swiftly, their blades clashing with sparks. The villain notices with a grin that Vordo has noticeably aged. Vordo is furious and asks how Bedorman manages to maintain his former appearance. He shouts that Bedorman is not capable of manipulating energy like General Ryan. Bedorman counters that although he has not trained energy, he has done some research. He shows syringes with an unknown green serum with a devilish smile. The dark silhouette on his chest flares, hinting at the source of his power. Bedorman's muscles bulge, and he turns into a monster before Vordo's eyes. Vordo looks up in horror, asking Bedorman if he really... A monstrous figure looms before him, and Vordo guesses, "Have you been experimenting on people?" Bedorman's face is distorted by an evil grin, his eyes glowing with green fire. The giant Bedorman confirms Verdo's fears about inhumane experiments. Verdo notes with alarm that Bedorman seems to have completely lost his mind. He looks back at his soldiers fighting the monsters and realizes that time is running out. Verdo decides that he must kill Ben before his men can intervene. Verdo's leg flares with energy as he activates a combat skill. Verdo rises into the air, enveloped in a golden glow, and shouts, "Return to hell, lost spirit!" He brings his shining sword down on the monster, Verdo's face full of determination. Verdo's sword slams into the monster's chest, causing a blinding flash. Thrown to the ground, Verdo is struck by Bedorman's inhuman speed and strength. A monster with glowing green eyes raises a huge fist for a crushing blow. Bedorman's blow splits the ground, Verdo barely manages to dodge. "I almost died," Verdo thinks, looking at the giant looming over him. Verdo prepared for battle, pointing his sword at the approaching monster. The hilt of Verdo's sword flares with golden flames as he activates his combat skill. Verdo crosses his sword with Bedorman's fist, trying to hold back the monstrous attack. Verdo's face contorts with tension as he struggles to withstand the onslaught. Verdo realizes in despair, he is stronger than me. Bedorman's incredible power throws Verdo back with crushing force. The warrior flies tens of meters away, crashing into trees with a roar. Wounded, Verdo lies on the ground, his trusty sword rolled to the side. He admits to himself with horror, things are bad, he is too strong. The giant Bedorman looms over him while Verdo wonders where he got such power from. The monster confirms with a sly grin, "That's exactly what you're thinking, right?" Bedorman explains his strength as the development of civilization, laughing at Verdo's ignorance. He mockingly calls Verdo an old man who is fixated only on fencing and therefore weak. "You're not making any progress, you fool," Bedorman says with contempt. Verdo, gathering his last strength, reminds him of General Ryan, but Bedorman only says the name questioningly. Bedorman replies with a grin that he knows General Ryan very well. The monster Bedorman mockingly asks Verdo if he knows what an average is. He points to Verdo, urging him to assess the current state of affairs. Verdo asks, confused, what exactly Bedorman means. Worry flashes in Verdo's eyes as he begins to understand. One of Bedorman's monsters is furiously tearing apart soldiers, and there are signs of battle everywhere. The warriors scatter in all directions, screaming, unable to withstand the onslaught. Another monster creates a whirlwind, sucking in the soldiers, and Bedorman notes their unequal strength. Bedorman declares that this is a slaughterhouse where his monsters have overwhelming power. He philosophizes that there is always someone outstanding, but there is no point in equating everyone to the same standard while zombified soldiers appear on the screen. The soldier screams in horror, his face is splattered with blood, his death cry echoing through the forest. Verdo realizes with despair, "It's impossible. I can't believe that my soldiers are losing." Bedorman grins mockingly. "Seriously? You still don't admit it, even after seeing it with your own eyes?" The monster swings, growling, "Forget about it! Just die, Verdo!" Suddenly, the combat skill 9 Hidden Twin Blades is activated. A powerful blow falls on Bedorman, but he seems unshakable. The loyal warrior, shouting, "Master, get back, I'll deal with him," rushes to intercept the monster. The soldier turns anxiously to Verdo, waiting for an order or a reaction. Verdo, retreating, looks back at his brave warrior who remained to fight. Gasping for breath, Verdo runs as his soldier engages in an unequal battle with the monster behind him. Bedorman grins maliciously as he watches Verdo flee. The monster bursts into mad laughter, covering his mouth with his hand. Bedorman notes with disdain that even now Verdo only thinks about himself. Meanwhile, faithful Ivan loudly orders the soldiers to retreat. He shouts that the battle is lost and they need to run to their lands, saving their lives. Soldiers obey, following their feudal lord for the sake of the future. Ivan, drawing his sword, decides to stop the monster alone. Bedorman's huge fist crashes down on the brave warrior. Ivan's sword shatters into pieces from the monstrous blow. Verdo and the rest of his detachment quickly ride away on horseback, leaving the battlefield. The masked monster asks whether it is worth pursuing the fugitives. Bedorman, shaking his head, decides that there is no need for this. He confidently states that he already knows where they are headed. Bedorman predicts with a grin that the stupid Verdo will gather people for them by declaring war. The villain smiles widely, realizing that Verdo will only help their plans. Verdo, breathing heavily, jumps away, not believing what is happening. He desperately thinks about how they can defeat these monsters. The remnants of Verdo's detachment hastily retreat under cover of night. Meanwhile, the young man trains hard, lifting huge boulders. His face expresses extreme concentration and determination during grueling exercises. Verdo and his men gallop quickly, the clatter of hooves measuring their retreat. Furious, Verdo demands to know who is to blame for this absurd situation. Warrior girl Rumi volunteers to report, and Verdo nods impatiently. Rumi reports, out of 400 warriors, 347 were killed or infected, 27 were wounded, and only 26 were fit for battle. Verdo's face darkens as he remembers that there are only 100 soldiers in the castle, the rest are wounded or newcomers. He exclaims in despair how it is possible to win the war with only 126 fighters. Rumi suggests recalling General Ryan immediately. Verdo angrily shouts that it will be too late even if he calls her now. Then Rumi suggests asking the monsters in the castle for help. Verdo is surprised. She explains that their leader Hansel was rumored to have fought on equal terms with General Ryan. Rumi is sure that since they have given shelter to these monsters, they will help in return. Verdo asks doubtfully, "So we're going to fight monsters with other monsters?" Suddenly, Verdo exclaims with a crazy smile, "Excellent! Let's act according to this plan!" 3 days later, Verdo and his troop enter the castle to the sound of a bugle. The riders head straight to the training ground. Verdo, having arrived, loudly orders, "Stop training, everyone gather!" Hansel, lifting a glowing barbell surrounded by his creations, turns around in surprise. Rumi angrily shouts at the trainees, "What are you doing? Follow the order!" Hansel and his creatures reluctantly submit, gathering in front of Verdo. Verdo, looking at the young man, asks, "Boy, your name is Hansel, right?" Hansel asks with a smile if Verdo has come for personal training. Verdo wearily replies that he came to give the order to the monsters, telling them to stop training. The feudal lord loudly demands that these lower beings repay the debt for shelter and food. Verdo, raising his fist, orders them to destroy the zombie army approaching the castle. Hansel's creations look confused, beads of sweat running down their faces. Hansel and his protege look at Verdo with an unperturbed expression. Verdo mutters in irritation, looking at their stupid faces, doubting whether they understand him. Sitting on his horse, Verdo points at them, offering the lesser beings a chance to die with honor. He promises their leader Hansel citizenship in his great nation. Verdo shouts that this is the best opportunity to show off his monstrous training in action. In response to Verdo's order, a battle cry is heard. "Posing! Double biceps in the front!" One of the creatures lets out a powerful exhalation, straining all its strength to demonstrate. Hansel's creatures begin to show off their muscles in sync with smiles. Verdo looks at this show in amazement, not understanding what is happening. Hansel proudly explains to the feudal lord, "This is called bodybuilding through training." The young man enthusiastically adds that this is how they show off the results of their studies. Verdo explodes with rage. "Now is not the time for jokes. If you do not carry out the order..." The feudal lord shouts that if they die or are wounded because of their delay, Hansel, shrouded in a dark aura, clenches his fist. "We won't be able to train, bastard." With blazing red eyes, he asks, "Will you take responsibility for the loss of muscle mass?" Verdo is puzzled, not understanding what loss of muscle mass Hansel is talking about. Hansel's threatening aura weighs on the feudal lord, making him think about apologizing. Verdo feels sick from the absurdity of what is happening and the pressure from the young man. Hansel apologizes for his words with a serious expression, but his sincerity is questionable. Verdo, unable to bear it any longer, orders his men to leave, abandoning the training ground. Hansel enthusiastically announces that since they have rested, it is time to start training again. Rumi suggests that Verdo try to convince them again, but he angrily refuses. The feudal lord, turning away, gives the order to immediately call General Oxus. Rumi asks in surprise if he really means General Ox. Verdo confirms, noting that although Ox has a bad temper, he is almost as strong as Ryan. Verdo decisively orders all soldiers to gather at the castle gates. He states that they will show the zombies what humans are capable of as the undead horde approaches. A crowd of zombies is already at the castle walls. Silhouettes of defenders are visible on the tower. General Ox appears, a mighty warrior with gray hair and a pierced nose. Verdo swallows nervously, looking at Ox, a bead of sweat running down his face. From above, you can see a huge purple mass of zombies surrounding the castle. Suddenly, General Ox, his face distorted, shouts, "Stop!" Ox yells to the zombies, "We've been informed that you have an intelligent leader." The general continues desperately, "Don't you want to discuss this?" From the tower, Ox and Verdo see Hansel and his creatures standing on the bridge in front of the castle. A huge monster is moving towards the castle, carrying a pale girl in a hat on its back, the leader of the zombies. Verdo recognizes her in horror. Elise! While she looks ahead impassively. Elise, from above, irritably asks Ox what he wants since he made her show up. General Ox shouts from the tower that even though the zombies have a larger army, his soldiers are trained and the walls are strong. Ox suggests that Elise decide the outcome of the war by having representatives from each side duel. Elise smiles widely and maliciously. Interesting, I accept that offer. General Ox confirms with a predatory grin, then you agree. With a battle cry, Ox leaps from the castle wall, raising a cloud of dust upon landing. Once at the bottom, the general asks menacingly, which of you will come forward? One of Hansel's hooded creations groans, its red eye glowing ominously. The hooded creature roars, its muscles bulging with tension. General Ox, with a huge sword, notes the impressive size of the enemy. Ox points forward with glowing eyes, offering to test his creation skills as well. The general rushes forward, raising his giant sword. The creature's muscles tense to the limit, its red eye glowing ominously. The creature blocks Ox's massive sword with its bare hand, causing a shockwave. Ox, smirking, acknowledges the strength of his opponent and prepares for another blow. The creature can withstand a hail of blows, its red eye not fading. The hooded creature's face is distorted with tension, but it remains standing. Ox's sword plunges into the creature's chest, but it seems to absorb the blow. Suddenly, the creature spits out a dark substance, hitting Ox right in the face. The general dodges the next spit, noting to himself that he dodged it in time. Ox curiously asks how the enemy's body was created, since he has never seen such undead. The hooded creature trembles, realizing, dangerous. Powerful. Suddenly, the creature turns around and runs away. Ox shouts after him in surprise, running away, looking at the fleeing monster. The general declares in a rage, no, no, this will only end with the death of one of us. Ox catches up with the creature, raising his sword to strike the fleeing creature in the back. The creature seems to smirk under its hood, muttering, almost done. General Ox stands frozen in bewilderment, not understanding what his opponent has planned. Verdo screams in horror at the general to be careful, seeing the bones flying at him. Oxa is thrown back with a powerful blow. It slides along the ground, leaving a deep mark. The general turns around in anger, asking who dared to interrupt his sacred duel. Ox's gaze turns upwards to where Hansel is grinning on the hill. Hansel's massive fist crashes down on the general, sending him flying. Hansel laughs loudly, mocking Ox's pompous speeches about the sacred battle. The young man with a sinister grin asks if Ox has any idea why he accepted the challenge. Hansel declares that Ox is the last unpredictable force in this duchy. The general pursuing the creature fell into a trap without noticing the catch. Hansel laughs mockingly, saying that Ox has the brains of a bull, just like his name. Verdo and his assistant watch in horror as the general falls, their faces distorted with fear. The captain of the guard on the castle wall is also in shock, his muscles tense from what he saw. General Ox, defeated and bloodied with horror in his glowing eyes, begs for mercy. Hansel replies with a cold smile that of course they will spare him. Hansel's huge creature holds a beaten Ox, who looks completely helpless and confused. The creature roars and throws General Ox high into the air like a toy. Ox, in flight, looks down with a face distorted with horror, realizing his inevitable fate. The general falls right into a crowd of thirsty zombies who eagerly reach out their hands to him. Horrible sounds are heard, accompanied by splashes of blood, hinting at a brutal massacre. General Ox, now a zombie himself, lets out a guttural growl as he points forward towards the castle. Verdo and his assistant realize in horror even General Ox has fallen. Hansel mockingly offers Verdo to surrender the castle in exchange for his life. Verdo vehemently refuses to give up the country to someone who has renounced humanity. Hansel grins maliciously, saying that he had no intention of sparing Verdo. The young man points his finger, ordering his undead army to advance. With icy calm, Hansel gives the command, forward. A horde of zombies led by the revived Ox is rushing uncontrollably towards the castle. In desperation, Verdo orders the archers to open fire immediately. Inexperienced archers panic, not knowing how to handle their weapons. The captain of the guard clenches his fist in impotent rage as he looks at the approaching threat. The assistant panics and asks Verdo what they should do. Verdo, drenched in cold sweat, cannot find an answer. He mumbles in confusion, I don't know. The assistant looks at her commander with bewilderment. Verdo screams in despair that he doesn't know either and starts running. The advisor runs away from the castle as fast as he can. Verdo's face is distorted with fear and determination to save himself. The shadows with red eyes mock, "Coward, Verdo! Verdo is a coward!" Hansel's voice sounds in his head. "Verdo, only cowards run away." The girl with the Verdo doll smirks, saying that their young master is too timid. A voice from the past sarcastically reminds Verdo of his talent, the ability to escape. An image of a captive assistant begging for salvation appears before Verdo's eyes. The advisor cries out in despair that he, more than anyone, did not want this shameful flight. He wonders if anyone knows how heavy the burden of responsibility is on his shoulders. Verdo, sobbing, screams at the sky, "Even someone like me! Save me!" His escape leads him to a group of athletes, and Verdo immediately begins to apologize for his past neglect of training. The advisor is ready to die 1,000,000 times if only his people, soldiers, and country were saved. He falls prostrate before the strongmen, desperately begging them for help for his people. One of the athletes, after listening, concludes with bewilderment, "In short, you want to train, right?" Verdo looks at them in bewilderment, completely unable to understand such a strange conclusion. The athlete, turning his back, declares to Verdo, "I don't need your life, but..." He grins, surrounded by musclemen. "The fees for personal training will be huge." Another strongman approaches Hansel, wanting to join his squad. Hansel yells sharply at the newbie, "Watch out, newbie!" The faceless figures line up as Hansel announces the selection criteria. The leader of the athletes continues sternly, "Those who can bench press less than 400 kilon in 3 exercises have no place here." Hansel and his team confidently step forward, ready for action. Verdo, with snot under his nose, thinks, "I'm sure they're just a bunch of idiots." But looking at their retreating backs, he wonders, but why do they look so cool? Verdo is amazed by the sight of their shining muscular backs. The athletes, led by Hansel, begin an intense run, counting down the seconds. Hansel points to the direct path to the gate, urging his fighters on. In an emergency, he calls for interval training and the team responds with a roar. The stopwatch counts down the last moments before the next dash. 1.5 minutes at top speed, Hansel commands, and the squad rushes forward. One of the recruits, clearly out of shape, is breathing heavily and starting to fall behind. His face is distorted with fatigue. He can barely catch his breath, trying not to give up. Incredibly fast, he thinks, looking at the retreating tracks of his comrades. Meanwhile, the mother and child scream in horror, surrounded by hungry zombies. Suddenly, like a punishment from heaven, the athletes descend upon the undead, saving the innocent. A boy with frightened eyes looks out from behind his mother's hand. The child reassures his mother that they have been saved, but she is still confused. The mother watches the athletes walk away, continuing to count their reps. The inspired boy asks if he could become as strong if he learned fencing. The mother, looking confused, tells her son that this is not fencing at all. She suggests asking the strongmen about their technique after the war, while they continue running. Meanwhile, a horde of zombies storms the castle gates and the Hawkeye skill is activated. One of the jocks is puzzled as to why the zombies are running towards them with some nonsense, suggesting that they need water. The same rookie who had fallen behind, now a zombie, hobbles towards the athlete, trying to say something. A gasping zombie recruit tries to explain that they are zombies, but is interrupted and scolded for his bad posture. The zombie recruit explains that the undead are mindless and driven only by hunger. Hansel firmly declares that he will not spare them, his hand shrouded in dark energy. The pale fat man anxiously asks Hansel about his future plans. Hansel notices figures that look like soldiers passing through the castle gates. The athlete, smiling, suggests simply pushing out all the enemies with the force of his pectoral muscles. The fat man looks at Hansel in shock, not believing his ears. He quickly agrees, calling Hansel's plan brilliant while Hansel remains perplexed. Hansel laughs smugly and asks if he can at least lead the squad. The leader of the jocks gives permission with a grin, showing off his powerful back. The fat man's face is distorted by a sinister grin, his eyes sparkle slyly. The fat man, having taken command, orders the first and second groups to disperse and protect the villagers. He orders the third and fourth groups to climb the castle walls for defense. He shouts to the human soldiers to engage the advancing enemies. The fifth group is ordered to help Hansel push the zombies out of the castle. Hansel, straining himself, single-handedly holds back the onslaught of a whole crowd of zombies at the gate. The fat man watches with surprise and slight disbelief as Hansel's method actually works. Suddenly, he shouts out a new order in confusion. "Block the gates!" The elderly commander screams in panic that the village will be in danger if the zombies break through. He desperately begs everyone to block the gates at any cost. The warrior girl anxiously reports to the commander, "Sir, the gate is already broken!" The soldiers panic and realize that there is nothing to block the passage with while Hansel alone holds the gate. Suddenly, one of the warriors decisively declares that he foresaw this turn of events. With incredible effort, he, together with his older strongmen comrades, drags a huge load. The commander is amazed to recognize him as the same incompetent swordsman brought by the general. The warrior girl can't believe her eyes, asking how they managed to lift such a heavy object. Hansel, still holding off the zombies, turns around and shouts the command, "Walking living room!" One of the musclemen, carrying a gigantic weight, strains to the limit, ordering them to move forward. The swordsman who initiated this idea begins to doubt, feeling his strength leaving him. His quadriceps are on fire, his legs refuse to obey under the inhuman load. In despair, he shouts to his senior comrade that they cannot do this to them. An older friend drenched in sweat reminds us to take care of our bodies. He continues with difficulty, fearing injury from overexertion. The athlete begs for mercy because the injury will interfere with training. Unable to bear it any longer, he falls to his knees, begging to be let go. The swordsman in despair shouts to his elder that he has misunderstood everything. He himself can barely hold on, asking how they can lift this unbearable burden. The swordsman's vision becomes blurry, and he can barely make out Hansel holding the gate. He suddenly realizes that he can still lift the weight while looking at Hansel. The fat commander watches in amazement as the swordsman lifts a huge, glowing weight. The fat man immediately shouts out an order to the fifth group to protect those carrying the weights. The fat man commands, "Group with weights, block the entrance," and a huge, glowing weight moves forward. The swordsman's face is distorted by inhuman tension. He clenches his teeth. 3 athletes, including a swordsman, use their last strength to drag a giant weight towards the gate. They shout in unison, we can do it." Their determination is unwavering. Hansel, still holding off the zombies, sees a group approaching with a weight. The group with the weights has almost reached the gate. Hansel is preparing to retreat. The athletes bend under the weight, but continue to slowly lower the weight. With incredible care, they place the giant weight on the ground. The huge weight finally blocks the passage, cutting off the zombies' path. The swordsman, all in sweat, looks at his strongman comrade with relief. The older comrade, all in a sweat, breathes heavily, but looks with satisfaction. Hansel turns to the zombies, noting how carefully they carried the weight. He smiles and praises them for a good job as the jocks fight off the remaining enemies. The fat commander joyfully exclaims that the entrance to the castle is finally blocked. The kettlebell group is told to rest, and the athletes give a relieved thumbs up. The fat man immediately gives a new order. Everyone except the first and second groups must help Hansel drive out the zombies. The squads of musclemen rush forward rapidly, carrying out the order. 3 athletes with sparkling eyes rush to help at incredible speed. Hansel prepares for another attack, and behind him, 3 musclemen jump on a crowd of zombies. Hansel's powerful hand pushes back the advancing dead, preventing them from breaking through. One of the jocks, pushing away the zombies, doubtfully asks if they are doing everything right. Hansel calmly advises him to put more strength into his pectoral muscles. The jock readily replies, "Yes, sir," straining his massive chest. The screaming zombies continue to advance. One of them rushes at the jock. Suddenly, the zombie sinks its teeth into the shoulder of one of the athletes. The fat commander shouts in horror from the tower for them not to let themselves be bitten. He warns in panic that the one bitten will turn into an undead. The bitten jock's eye flashes red and he grits his teeth in pain. Saliva flows from the athlete's mouth. He lets out a guttural groan. The transformation begins. A muscle man with red eyes and bulging veins lets out a furious roar. One jock smirks as he tells another, "Don't pretend to be infected, we're already undead." Hansel remains silent, puzzled, not understanding what is happening. Hansel is shocked, and the jocks below are having fun. One even wants to try to get infected. A crowd of angry, screaming zombies rushes straight towards one of the athletes. Suddenly, the zombie sinks its teeth into the jock's powerful chest. The dead man's jaws crunch as they clamp down on the flesh, trying to bite through the muscles. The jock's face contorts in pain, but he doesn't make a sound. The athlete angrily declares, "You're staining my muscles," and throws the zombie away with a glow. An unknown observer with a sharp eye asks the question, "What are they?" The observer notices that the child and the ghouls are fighting with their troops, helping the people. The blue-haired observer smirks, closing his eye. "Keek, keek, I didn't expect that." A close-up of his eye. ominously red, hidden under his hand. He points at Hansel and orders his undead, "Get him!" A dark aura emanates from him as his will directs the zombie horde. Meanwhile, the archer releases a shining arrow. "This is for General Ivan." Another warrior responds with a powerful shot. "And this is for General Oxus." The soldiers furiously shout "Revenge" as they rain down blows on their enemies. The gray-haired commander pushes the young swordswoman away. "Step aside, my lord." He runs to the edge of the wall, desperately shouting, "Hansel Nim, over there!" The commander points to the villains in the distance. "They are to blame for everything." Hansel, surrounded by zombies, screams that he can't see anything because of the crowd. The commander from the tower desperately points in the direction, straight ahead, to the blue-haired one. Hansel, pushing his way through the dead, replies with a determined look. "Got it." He asks one of the ghoul musclemen if he can handle it himself, and gets a confident answer. "Yes, of course." Hansel prepares for a powerful attack, his fists enveloping in an ominous red aura. He performs the reverse butterfly move, creating a series of powerful shockwaves. The gray-haired commander, watching this, whispers with amazement and hope. A miracle. A powerful wave from Hansel's attack throws the zombies away from the wall. The commander shouts enthusiastically, "A miracle is happening!" The blue-haired villain, watching the failure of his troops, contemptuously says to his companion, "These bastards are no good for anything." He continues, turning to a companion named Eliza, seeking her confirmation. Eliza, the blue-haired man's companion, nods coldly in response. The blue-haired man leaning on the ground says that he didn't want to interfere, but it was unexpected. He straightens up, his gaze fixed on the approaching Hansel. Hansel, bare-chested, confidently strides forward through the smoke. The blue-haired villain and Hansel lock eyes, ready to fight. Hansel stretches his neck, his muscular back tense. The blue-haired man is enveloped in dark energy, his body transforming into a monstrous form. Hansel rushes at the transformed enemy without hesitation. Their fists collide in a furious blow, creating a powerful shockwave. Close-up of their faces, Hansel is determined while the villain smirks with glowing eyes. Hansel understands with a serious expression that all responsibility is now on him. He is confident that no matter how strong the enemy is, he cannot surpass his grip. Hansel quickly extends his hand, intending to grab his opponent. His fingers close around the neck of the monstrously transformed villain. The villain with glowing eyes smirks, anticipating Hansel's actions. Hansel realizes with horror that the enemy's neck muscles are so thick that they cannot be held. The monster strains its neck, and Hansel's grip begins to weaken. The monster delivers a crushing punch straight into Hansel's chest. From the powerful blow, Hansel flies high into the sky, losing control. Hansel flies backwards, seeing an explosion from his fall below. Hansel lands on his hands, dodging lightning-fast attacks as the villain above him laughs. The villain mockingly shouts that Hansel is unable to keep up with his speed. Hansel analyzes the situation with a tense face, thinking about muscle contractility. Turning into a swift drop, the villain rushes down, lamenting that he saved this power for Ryan. Hansel assumes a defensive posture, his body enveloping in energy as the villain questions his motives. Showing off his incredible back muscles, Hansel prepares for the next stage of the fight. A close-up of his tensed red muscles, hinting at the hidden potential of the whites. Hansel's face darkens, his eyes flash red, and the villain wonders why he isn't taking damage. The villain charges again, contemplating the need to change tactics if this doesn't work. A powerful kick lands on Hansel as the villain demands even more strength and speed. Hansel understands that the only way to win is to withstand the enemy's attacks. He decides to take the blow himself and wait until the enemy runs out of steam. In short, it will be a battle of endurance, Hansel decides, showing off his muscles. At this moment, Hansel did not yet know the whole truth. He looks ahead with concentration, unaware of the hidden factor. It turns out that Ben, the villain, had an unnatural body. Used syringes are scattered on the ground, hinting at the source of the villain's power. Hansel screams, "Press!" in horror, realizing something important about his opponent. The transformed Ben laughs maliciously, anticipating his attack. The monster, shouting, "Crush!" falls on Hansel with all its mass. Hansel holds back Ben's crushing onslaught with incredible effort. Monstrous Ben tensed his muscles, his red eyes blazing with rage. Ben, shocked, asks where Hansel got such inhuman power from. With a powerful push, Hansel throws the monster high into the sky. Ben, tumbling through the air, decides to avoid a direct, forceful collision. Hansel smirks, knowing that controlling the nervous system is the enemy's weak point. He admits that even he is not used to such rapid physical transformations. His muscles are burning. Hansel wonders when this fast-moving opponent will finally tire. Ben, now even more massive and wearing a mask, unleashes a blow that Hansel meets with his sword. The monster turns into a whirlwind of fists, attacking from all sides. Suddenly, Liper appears in Ben's path, ready to protect Hansel. The monster with the burning eye hisses contemptuously, "You are weak!" Liper grips his sword, admitting, "We know we're weaker than you." But his eyes are burning with determination. "However, the strength of our friendship." Liper charges forward, activating the combat skill 100, shouting, "Stronger than you!" Ben's giant hand easily deflects his attack. Liper flies back and Ryan screams his name in horror. An enraged Ryan rushes at Ben with a huge sword, shouting, "You bastard, how dare you!" Ryan unleashes the skill Swift Sword of Chaos on the enemy, but Ben only thinks, slowly. Ryan's sword slices through the air as Ben seems to easily dodge the blow. Ryan swings with a scream, but the momentum is too great to stop the blow. His sword freezes a millimeter from Ben's face as he lies on the ground. Suddenly, Ben appears behind Ryan, mockingly calling him weak. Ben stands confidently over the defeated Ryan, who still cannot recover. A crowd of dark shapes appears in the distance as Ben towers over Ryan. Hansel suddenly appears, praising Ryan for a good try. Hansel unleashes a powerful arcing attack of incredible force on Ben. After the attack, Hansel resolutely steps forward, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. Hansel looks into the distance thoughtfully, his face expressing deep thought. With Big Ben defeated, Hansel sees this as reason enough to join BODYBUILDER. Meanwhile, on the outskirts near the coastal village, 2 pillars of light are visible. A messenger in a black cloak hurries towards the building, desperately shouting, "General Rion!" The mustachioed man turns around in alarm at the call, his face expressing concern. In the room, at a table with food, sits a muscular woman, unhappy with the intrusion into her chambers of a lonely maiden. A woman with a sly grin and a mug in her hand makes an ambiguous joke. The mustachioed man screams in panic that now is not the time for jokes because the situation is extremely serious. The woman offers him to catch his breath, and he, leaning on the table, reports a zombie attack. The messenger, with despair in his voice, begs her for help, because her strength is needed immediately. General Ryan waves her hand dismissively as she grabs a bite to eat, confident that the army can handle it. Hearing that it was Ben who brought the zombie, Ryan freezes, dropping his food. Ryan's face contorts in shock when she hears the name Ben. Suddenly, Ryan bursts out laughing, turning his back to the messenger. Her laughter gets louder, and the mustachioed man looks at her in complete bewilderment. The messenger exclaims in despair, "General, I told you we are not laughing." Ryan replies with a smile, "When else to laugh if not at times like these? Oh, poor Ben." She confidently tells the mustachioed man, "There are 2 shields in the castle, showing 2 fingers." The first shield she names is a trusted ally named Hansel, shown in battle, and the second one is his beloved niece, the lying viper of the windshield, who is rapidly attacking. Ryan proudly adds that her niece is the future #1 of the entire continent. The girl glides resolutely across the ground, her gaze full of fighting spirit. Ryan's niece, Eliza, announces her technique with a determined look. Line, Bloodhound Crunch. Flashback. The previous night, the boy asks Eliza why she rejected him, since she has feelings too. He admits that he trained hard, knowing that she likes strong guys, and sometimes he even wins. The guy with despair in his eyes begs her to reconsider her decision. Suddenly, Eliza releases a powerful stream of energy, surprising him. Her hands glow with blue mana, and she explains, "I was born with a body full of mana." Eliza continues that too much mana can destroy her body, so she has to release it sometimes. She does this in secret from others, fearing that one day her secret will be revealed. With a slight smile, Eliza admits that she lacks the courage to drag her loved one into her problems. Suddenly, the guy hugs her from behind, and Eliza freezes in amazement at his actions. Eliza screams in horror that his actions could lead to the release of mana. A guy surrounded by a blue aura claims to be the only magical scientist, Verdo Ben. He hugs her, promising to solve her problem and love her forever. Their faces come together in a tender kiss, illuminated by bright light. A man with tears in his eyes peeks at them, shockedly whispering the name Eliza. Eliza seems to notice him as he says, "Eliza, just for you." Memory, happy Eliza and the boy holding a small dog in their arms. The same man secretly watches as Eliza releases her mana around the fire at night. Another memory, a couple carefreely walking with a dog along a green alley. A man sobs, clinging to someone's clothes, his face contorted with grief. Memory. Eliza looks at someone with a gentle smile, her eyes full of warmth. Suddenly, her face is distorted with pain. She grabs her neck and blood splashes are visible in the background. Ben runs up to Eliza in a panic, who is coughing up blood and their dog is barking in alarm. Eliza, turning away, reassures him, saying that the mana has become stronger and this has begun to happen more often. Ben's face expresses extreme fear and helplessness as he sees Eliza suffering. Ben, in his lab surrounded by flasks, declares that it is time to keep his promise. He asks Eliza to wait, assuring her that he has found an element that can strengthen her body. Ben, now a monster, begs Eliza to let him heal her so that they can die together many years later. The mustachioed man, who had been secretly watching Eliza, drops the bottle in shock, green liquid flowing from his mouth. Eliza and her dog look at the man, who shouts that she liked Verdo too, and she knows it. Verdo screams in despair that they were happy and everything was fine. Eliza regretfully replies that she never thought of him that way and apologizes for the misunderstanding. Her hand flares with blue mana as she continues. And even if we were truly together? Surrounded by energy, Eliza asks Verdo if he could love her if she became a criminal because of magic. With shining eyes, she reproaches him. You knew about it, but you ignored it. Verdo clutches the bottle, stating that he didn't have the courage to stand up to his father before, but now... His face contorts into a scream of now. He's covered in sweat, green liquid at his mouth. Close up, Verdo hiccups, green mucus running down his chin. Verdo covers his face with his hands, muttering that he is still afraid, while Eliza and the dog look at him, bathed in light. A lone figure toils on the cracked, barren land under the blazing sun. Two exhausted men work in a field. One of them, Verdo, looks into the distance. The peasants clutch pitchforks and torches in their hands, their patience running out. The crowd chants at the castle walls, "Feudal lord, come out and make it rain." Father Verdo, looking at the rioters, says, "Look, Verdo, this is what we call our people." The feudal lord smirks, declaring that he is not a god and cannot control the weather. Verdo anxiously asks his father what they should do in this situation. The father calmly asks his son if he thinks the people hate him. The feudal lord angrily exclaims that the people simply need a scapegoat on whom to vent their anger. Smiling ominously, the father says that there is someone who will take his place, and Verdo asks who it is. With a mad grin, the feudal lord announces, "Eliza, the one you confessed to." The father thanks Verdo, not expecting that such a useless son would be useful. The feudal lord gloats that without Verdo, he would not have known about the witch on their land. Verdo screams in horror at how a father could use the one his son loves. The father hits Verdo hard in the face, calling him an idiot. The feudal lord reproaches his son that the future ruler should not give in to feelings. The father, in a rage, orders the guards to throw Verdo into prison. Verdo, risking everything, descends from the tower window on a rope against the backdrop of the sunset. With a bruise on his face, he whispers to his father that he won't listen this time. Verdo runs through the crowd, deciding he can't let Eliza die. He notices Eliza being led by guards and desperately shouts her name. Eliza, captured by the guards, desperately calls Verdo for help. The crowd recognizes the young master Verdo, suspecting him of conspiring with the witch. People furiously demand the execution of any ally of the witch, even the son of a feudal lord. Under his hood, Verdo clenches his fists resolutely, preparing for action. He rushes forward as someone from the crowd shouts his name. A close-up of Eliza's exhausted face, her gaze empty, and flies flying around. Tied to a pole, Eliza looks at the executioners and the angry crowd. Ben, badly wounded and bloodied, holds the lifeless Eliza in his arms as crows circle above them. Ben's face contorts with unbearable grief. He lets out a heartbreaking scream, his eyes burning. The shards of his glasses and other objects scatter across the white background, symbolizing the collapse of everything. The little creature falls, crying out in despair, "No, Eliza!" Monster Ben pounces on him in rage, shouting, "Get lost, you bastard!" His fist, like a dumbbell, falls on the creature's body. Close up, the creature's face contorts in pain under the monstrous force. Ben slams him into the ground, intending to crush him. He announces that the movements are now simpler, and it will be a bench press. The mutilated creature, pinned to the ground, calls out for Eliza again with its last strength. Ben delivers another crushing blow to the helpless body. Let go! I said let go, he roars, continuing the beating. View from behind. Ben methodically unleashes a hail of blows on the defeated creature. Ben clenches his fist, preparing for the next exercise on the unfortunate man. With a manic grin, he performs a pullover, slamming the creature into the ground. His fist flashes, delivering another blow with incredible speed. Ben continues the beating, calling it pulling down on the block without a break. Blood drips from his knuckles, testifying to the brutality of the attack. After finishing with Verdo, Ben stretches his neck, announcing that he will now take on the zombies. Suddenly, a bone whirlwind appears, in the center of which a dark dog-like figure is visible. Ben irritably recognizes the attacker. That puppy again? A whirlwind of bones crashes down on Verdo, who screams in pain, trapped. Ben looks at the defeated Verdo with a grin. You wanted to save your family? How sweet. Several figures, including Verdo, are carried away by the bone whirlwinds. Line turns around, watching the retreating tornadoes of the demon dog. Line turns away with a cold statement. Take her. I don't care about the loser. Father Verdo screams in panic that Ben cannot be allowed to leave so easily. The feudal lord, in horror, orders Line to catch up with and kill Ben, fearing revenge. Line stands at the crossroads, thoughtfully pronouncing the name of Count Verdo. With a furious cry of, I'll kill you, Line rushes forward with his sword at the ready. The feudal lord on the bridge is puzzled. Line seems to be running straight towards him. In anger, Line screams, demanding an answer. What did you do to my aunt? The frightened feudal lord orders to stop Line, who is clearly not herself. The ash-haired warrior clicks. The feudal lord is trying to escape again. Furious Line rushes forward, but her path is blocked by two swords. Two guards shout at Sister Line to stop, demanding that she stop the chase. Line jumps over them with a challenge. You can't stop me! The guards shout that they are obliged to at least try to detain her. They perform a rope walk by using their swords to hook Line's leg in midair. A sharp jerk sends her crashing to the ground, her spine arching dangerously. But she performs an extension, pushing off powerfully and rising upward. She lands in front of the ash-haired warrior, ready for another fight. The warrior, shouting, "Not the Count," rushes at Line, defending the feudal lord. The ash-haired warrior pins Line to the ground with her sword, grinning. Line lightly touches the ground with his foot, preparing for a counteraction. She does a backflip, escaping the warrior's pursuit. Suddenly, her brother Blog appears, ordering Line to stop. Line recognizes his brother in flight, shouting his name in surprise. She lands in front of the Blog as the feudal lord flies away in the background. Line looks at his brother appraisingly. Before it was just a face, but now he has a body. That's what we need. She asks defiantly if he really thinks he can stop her with such slow movements. Blog looks thoughtfully at his hand, clenching and unclenching his fingers. Close-up of his hand as he muses, I thought I was getting stronger. Line rushes at the feudal lord in a rage, demanding an answer for the death of her family. She swings her sword at Verdo, ordering him to die without apology. The blade freezes at the throat of Verdo, who awaits the end in horror. Suddenly, someone's hand grabs Line's wrist, stopping the fatal blow. It's Blog who holds his sister back while Verdo calls out for Hansel Nim in a panic. Line's face is distorted with rage. She tries to break free, and Verdo screams that she will stab him. The Blog pulls it back with force, calling it a rope pullover. He slams his sister into the ground 10 times in a row with incredible force. Blog looks at his hands, muttering that he misjudged his strength after the fight with the stone guy. Line lies unconscious on the ground, and Blog wonders in horror if he killed her. The Blog is relieved to think that Line appears to be alive after all. Meanwhile, 3 pillars of light can be seen above the distant mountains. Line suddenly comes to his senses, shouting Verdo's name. She finds herself in bed with an unfamiliar boy standing next to her. The boy explains that she is in the guest room of Verdo Castle at Hansel Nim's request. Line immediately asks where the Count himself is, doubting that she will be answered. To her surprise, the boy tells her that Verdo is training with Hansel Nim and offers to walk her there. Stunned, Line readily accepts his offer. They head towards the mountains, and Line still doesn't believe the Count is there. The boy carries her on his back up a steep slope, assuring her that she should trust him. Line realizes that the boy wouldn't have brought her to the Count if he wanted to harm her, and he already sees Hansel Nim. The boy on Line's back waves as she struggles to climb, not believing they are really here. Someone is breathing heavily, suffocating from the inhuman load. Shaking, sweaty hands press against the ground as their owner whispers Line's name. This is Verdo, harnessed to a cart with Hansel, shouting, "Kill me," while performing the Santa Bear walk. Hansel beams with satisfaction as he watches the Count train. The system message reads, "Wordow's words have inspired you. New skills are being created." Line and the boy from the cliff see Verdo struggling to pull the cart, begging Line for help. A notification appears, "Trainer's mind skill acquired. Trainer's mind skill combined with calmness skill." A pumped-up Hansel asks Wordo with a grin if he really enjoys training to death that much. System message, epic passive skill, psychopathic trainer has been created. Hansel screams in ecstasy about how amazing this is. He is in awe, and exhausted Verdo doesn't understand what the hell is going on. Verdo desperately screams Line's name, reminding him that she promised to kill him. Line watches the Count suffering from afar with a satisfied look. Verdo and the others pull the carts with their last strength, while Line and the boy watch from the cliff. The camera pans to a majestic castle on a hill overlooking the village. In the conference room, Line sits at a long table with other important people. It looks like Count Verdo, or someone very similar to him, is announcing the start of the meeting. Another nobleman reports that many nobles have died as a result of Ben's invasion. The speaker reports that the country's power has weakened, and General Ryan has refused to return, citing business. The mustachioed nobleman asks with a smile who will now fill the vacant position. The gray-haired count proposes to give the post to the heroes of the recent war, Handard and Leiper. The lords present unanimously approve of this wise decision. The speaker continues by mentioning that Hansel Nim's exploits inspired people to take up bodybuilding. As a result, the elite swordsman bodybuilder squad was formed. A certain goody builder has been appointed as a temporary instructor, monitoring the posture of the new recruits. The Count is delighted with such news. His face shines with joy. He sincerely thanks Hansel for his invaluable assistance in defending the country. Suddenly, someone decisively interrupts his speech with a cry of, "Wait!" Hansel slowly approaches the speaking Count from behind. The Count, sensing his approach, nervously asks, "Hansel Nim?" Hansel looms over him, his face in shadow but his eyes gleaming with determination. Suddenly, Hansel kicks the chair under the Count and smashes it to pieces. The Count falls to the floor, dumbfounded, asking what is happening, while the guard watches with a spear. Hansel's face becomes serious, and a red aura appears around him. With a crazy grin, he says, "Physical training." The camera pans to a row of sweaty, muscular backs sitting on a bench. The other nobles whisper, asking the guard to put away the spear so as not to anger Hansel Nim. Hansel asks the other lords with a wide smile if they want to join the training too. The gray-haired nobleman cowers in horror, muttering, "Why me?" Count Verdo, having gathered himself, calls for the meeting to be quickly continued and for the reports to be presented. A bald man with a monocle, all sweaty, exclaims admiringly, "Excellent, Verdo!" The mustachioed nobleman announces that the third report is dedicated to Line. Line sits with her arms crossed as it is revealed that she tried to kill the Duke, but he forgave her. As punishment, Line is stripped of her citizenship in the Duchy of Verdo. Count Verdo turns to Line, admitting that she probably has a poor opinion of him. He suddenly offers Line the right to kill him if she so chooses. The other lords look at the Count in complete bewilderment, not understanding what is happening. Count Verdo's legs tremble as he begs Line, "Now just kill me," Line says with a blissful look. "I refuse." Verdo cries out in despair that an incompetent leader like him does not deserve power and asks to be judged for his sins. The Count screams at the top of his voice, begging someone to condemn him. Hansel asks with a grin if Verdo wants to do less work and train more, which horrifies the Count. Hansel smiles widely, finding the idea to be a good one, while Verdo tries to stop him. Three nobles with sinister smiles ask if Verdo will hand over the country to them. One of them considers this possibility. Their eyes glow ominously, because they believe that the Duke's power has weakened and will be easy to seize. Hansel, feigning tenderness, tells Verdo that he didn't know how obsessed he was with training. Showing off his muscles, Hansel promises to help whoever becomes a duke increase their stamina. The nobles are relieved to thank fate that they were not born into the Verdo family and declare that he is the best candidate for the post of duke. Verdo screams in desperation, demanding to move on to the next question. After the meeting, the Count promised Hansel to make special training equipment. However, the duchy's technology was not capable of creating what was desired, and Verdo mentioned the spirit of the land, Behemos, as a possible creator. No one knew where to look for spirits, but Line suddenly declared that she was close to them. Line explained that by living with the elves and learning their ancient knowledge, she could easily speak with spirits. Hansel is delighted and asks Lena to take him to Behemos immediately, and they seal the deal with a handshake. Line agrees to help, but in return asks Hansel to assist in her revenge. Vordo asks hopefully if it is him she wants to take revenge on, but Leen coldly replies, "No, not you." Her face contorts with hatred as she speaks of the real culprits, a group of black magicians who destroyed her family. Suddenly the name Illuminati comes up and someone in the cave exclaims, completely unexpectedly. In the cave, the green-haired mage, in despair, vows not to repeat his mistakes again. Next to him, a creature in a bag-like mask with a glowing eye gloats about the importance of originality. A red-haired girl in a hat eating something declares that it will be much better without Eliza. A huge pale hand grabs the swordsman while the girl watches from the side. Three sinister figures, a girl, a magician, and a masked creature, laugh madly, anticipating victory. The camera focuses on a strange red triangular structure with a green crystal on top. A flock of black crows circles above this mysterious object hidden in the forest thicket. As dusk falls, the birds fly away, leaving the forest in an eerie silence. On the forest path, there is a warning sign with a skull, hinting at danger. Someone's boots step on the ground and a voice says, "Found you!" Under the full moon stands a muscular warrior with a sword. The inscription reads, "Illuminati." A powerful punch sends one of the hooded cultists flying. The green-haired mage, writhing in rage, gnashed his teeth. "I'll kill you!" A girl in a blue dress with a fan and a creature in a mask gloat as they watch his anger. The girl announces her decision with an anticipatory smile. Her eye glows ominously red as she declares, "We will destroy Eliza." The green-haired mage holds 3 ampules in his hand, from which a green glow emanates. A huge pale hand with green veins hangs over the fallen mage. The mage, surrounded by a green aura, releases a powerful energy blast. A dark silhouette with glowing green eyes grins evilly. "Kaha! You can consider this a betrayal, right?" A dark silhouette gloats, announcing the magician's betrayal. The creature with glowing eyes promises to convey the magician's decision to its master. A bright flash, and someone's hand reaches out with an ominous declaration, "You are mine!" The green-haired mage looks in horror at the approaching giant pale hand. The mage screams in despair as the huge hand reaches out to him. The girl and the masked creature run away, discussing how Ben betrayed them by sending them to himself. A red-haired girl with a sinister grin asks about the fate of Ben's experiment diary. A creature in a bag-like mask claims that the diary belongs to him. The girl doubts that he will be able to get the diary because there are many who want it, but he is confident of success. Under the full moon, they are interrupted by an unknown person who declares that he will be the one to take the diary. An unknown warrior under the moon activates the combat skill Insect Sword. A powerful blow is launched at enemies, causing a bright flash. The girl and the masked creature scream from the unexpected attack. The red-haired warrior knocks them to the ground with one swing of her sword. The masked creature turns around in amazement, not believing his eyes. The warrior turns away in disdain, muttering, "So many weeds." The creature transforms in rage, becoming enveloped in a green aura and grabbing the scythe. It releases the ominous Song of the Rotten Forest, filling the air with dark energy. A stream of dark green magic rushes straight towards the red-haired girl. The forest lights up with a green light as a wave of energy hits the warrior. Rotten Forest Symphony crashes down on the warrior with a giant wave of green energy. The red-haired girl didn't flinch as she activated her combat skill in the face of the attack. Her eyes sparkle when she talks about the tradition of weeding the graves of ancestors. The warrior continues, calling it boring but important old culture, preparing to strike. The masked creature, shrouded in green light, grins evilly as he listens to her words. With a blazing gaze, the girl declares that she is too old-fashioned to not follow traditions and activates the Insect Sword. A series of lightning-fast sword strikes cut through the green energy and rush towards the creature. The masked creature screams, caught in a bright flash from the warrior's attack. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Verdo is determinedly cutting his way through the dense undergrowth. Line chides Verdo, saying that the spirits don't like it when grass is cut, but he replies that he is clearing the way for Hansel. Hansel cheerfully commands Verdo to follow him with his attacks, assuring him that he is okay. However, Hansel soon begins to doubt whether they are being led in circles through the forest. Line cryptically explains that the spirit path is different from the normal paths. Suddenly, Line finds the right spot, and Hansel immediately checks the softness of the ground for training. Hansel announces the start of the exercises, and Line eagerly begins doing jump squats. Line performs the exercise with concentration, counting the repetitions as he exhales. With each exhalation, Line sinks deeper into a special state, counting to 5. She begins to sense the subtlest sounds of nature, even the chirping of small birds. Then the gentle rustling of leaves swaying in the wind reaches her ears. Line can even feel the subtle movement of flowers blooming in the grass. Line dives into the spirit trail, experiencing the world in bright colors and light. A sudden flash illuminates her consciousness, heightening her perception to the limit. She exclaims, "Here," having discovered something important in the flow of sensations. A surprised cry of 20 is heard, interrupting her concentration. Hansel smirks as she tells Werdo that Line shouldn't have counted the last time, but everyone heard. He commands, "Get together and do 40 more times. How many?" The creatures are shocked, but they resolutely shout, 40 times! Hansel, crouching down, shouts, "I can't hear! 60 times! How many?" The creatures shout with even greater zeal, 60 times! Hansel announces with a grin, "Okay, let's begin." And a glow emanates from his shoulder. Hansel, shrouded in a glow, takes off with a cry of "Tch." Line and Verdo fly after them, and Hansel commands, "Let the wind guide your bodies." Line explains with amazement that this is the spirit realm, the land where they live. They soar above the clouds towards a volcanic island that Line calls home, Gaia. Werdo looks at Hansel with delight, exclaiming, "Hansel Nim, this place." Suddenly, Verdo turns over in amazement and falls down rapidly. All three land with a thud on the sandy shore, raising clouds of sand. Werdo, sprawled on the ground, complains, "Hansel Nim, my body is heavy." Hansel cheerfully squats next to him, declaring, "Great for squats." The camera shows that they have found themselves on a beach surrounded by giant stone pillars. Hansel chuckles nervously, muttering about a home gym on this beach. Suddenly, two massive stone giants with glowing red eyes appear in front of them. An entire army of the same creatures greets them, and Hansel resolutely declares his desire to meet their leader. One of the stone giants raises his massive fist for a crushing blow. The impact shakes the ground, scattering small creatures and raising columns of sand. Hansel struggles with incredible effort to hold back the giant stone foot that is descending on him. The little companions scream in terror, worried about Hansel's condition. Several stone colossi simultaneously loom over the heroes, preparing to attack. A huge stone foot presses Hansel forcefully into the sand. Hansel lets out a shrill cry of pain under the incredible pressure. Hansel screams excitedly that he loves this progressive overload. Several stone giants merge into a single, even more massive figure. The earth shakes from another blow, and the satellites scream Hansel's name in panic. The stone colossi hum in confusion, their red eyes glowing in the dust. Hansel's companions feel the earthquake, but he screams that it is his muscles beating. Hansel, with tension on his face, demands to increase the load. A giant stone monster looms over them, ready to add weight. One of the companions is horrified to feel the effects of heavy impact X-101. Hansel, eyes ablaze, holds the incredible weight while counting out reps. Line asks him in confusion what he's doing, to which he replies, "It's Hansel's leg day today." Line curiously asks what leg day is. Hansel explains that it is leg training day, complaining about the elder's vague explanations. Suddenly, a voice comes from the sky calling them curious ants. The voice declares itself to be Behemoth, Lord of Gaia, and demands an answer as to the purpose of their arrival. Unperturbed Hansel, still under the monstrous weight, shouts out another count, 15? Suddenly, his eyes glow red and he takes off with determination, leaving Verdo puzzled. Hansel rushes towards the ocean as the stone giant and his companions watch him go. Reaching the shore, he falls to his knees and begins to drink seawater. Behemoth angrily repeats his question, but Hansel continues to drink with burning eyes. Finally, he rises, muscles glistening, proclaiming the importance of water for muscle growth. Hansel notes that this water is not like regular seawater. It is soft and pleasant to taste. The companions are delighted. This water builds muscles, everyone into the water. Hansel, already in the water with his joyfully splashing companions, wonders what kind of creatures these are. He announces with a satisfied smile, "Great, now let's talk." A voice from heaven angrily shouts, "How dare you drink when I speak, ill-mannered ants?" Behemoth declares that he will first correct their manners, and the stone giants advance menacingly. The Lord of Gaia declares this place to be a living labyrinth, the walls of which are constantly moving. Behemoth claims that without the help of spirits, they won't even find the entrance to this labyrinth. In the center of the labyrinth leading to the volcano, formidable golems are already waiting for them. The behemoth challenges them to find their way through his ever-changing maze and golems. Line looks up determinedly, preparing for action. She soars into the sky, performing the breaststroke exercise. The hippopotamus screams, "I won't allow it. Increase gravity." Line slows down sharply in the air, feeling the increased pull of gravity. She falls back to the ground with a dull thud. Line notes with annoyance that he cannot jump high due to strong gravity. Suddenly, she turns around in bewilderment at some sound. Meanwhile, Hansel, tensing his muscles, counts 1, 2, 3, 4. His powerful hand clenches in time with the count. 1, 2, 3! Hansel continues his training, shouting, 6, 7, 8! Behemoth roars that this is the land of spirit, gravity, and minds, and Hansel continues to count. 9, 10. The Lord of Gaia mocks that the walls cannot be broken down with hands, but Hansel is already breaking through the stone. 12. With a crazy smile and a cry of 13, Hansel breaks through the thickness of the wall. He notes with satisfaction that the wall, fortunately, turned out to be quite fragile. Hansel commands his companions to break down the walls, using the breach he made as a starting point. The companions join in enthusiastically, surprised at how easily the stone gives way. One of them notices a huge golem and asks what to do with these guards. The combat skill inscription appears, "Honey Tongue with a heart of stone." Line quickly attacks the giant golem, aiming straight at its glowing red eye. She explains in flight that the golem's eyes are their core, and destroying them will stop the flow of energy. The companions furiously attack the golems, aiming for their eyes, while the behemoth screams in rage, "You! E!" The volcano explodes into a pillar of fire, the earth shakes, and behemoth roars, "Damn bastards!" Hansel, looking at the erupting volcano, calmly asks if behemoth is there. Line explains that the spirits indicated that the meeting with behemoth would take place if they lifted that thing. In front of them stands a huge stone disc with a rope going up into the air, and Lena wonders how they can do it. Hansel suggests simply breaking the disc, but the companion, in a panic, points to the rope tied to it. The camera focuses on a thick rope attached to the disc, and Hansel recalls that 11 months have passed since his arrival from Earth. The rope reaches a pulley on the ceiling of the cave, and it is revealed that 17-year-old Hansel was hiding a longing for home. This mechanism, reminiscent of something familiar, awakens deeply hidden feelings in Hansel. Hansel's eyes widen in sudden realization as he looks at the structure. Tears glisten in Hansel's eyes as he recognizes the familiar mechanism. He realizes with excitement, in front of him is a lat pull-down machine. The story delves into the history of the creation of this machine by an American trainer in 1960. Trainer Andrew Memel noticed similarities between the bent-over barbell row and the bench press exercise. This is how the idea was born to create a simulator for safe and effective execution of this movement. Nowadays, there are many different designs of this popular exercise machine. Hansel, wiping away a tear, confirms with a smile, "It's a deadlift machine. You can't cry, your muscles will go away." The blue companions ask again in bewilderment, "A deadlift machine? What is that?" Verdo wonders worriedly if this is a trap, while Lean watches warily. Hansel confidently steps forward, declaring, "No, this is not a trap." Hansel, showing off his back, asks his companions to list the back exercises they have done. One of the companions hesitantly lists, one-arm dumbbell row, pull-ups, barbell row, Romanian deadlift. Hansel explains that the pull-ups were possible thanks to mutual assistance, but in the gym they often train alone, and sits down at the machine. He continues that to train pull-ups alone, a lat pull-down machine is used. Hansel notes that the exercise is similar to a pull-up, allows for weight control, and is popular with all athletes. The work of the subscapularis and latissimus dorsi muscles is demonstrated, with a warning not to pull with the arms. Hansel offers to show how to do it right, and the companions chant, "Muscles, muscles!" The first step is to adjust the height of the footrest so that your body does not lift off the seat. Step 2. Take hold of the bar slightly wider than shoulder width, placing your feet under the support. Step 3. Brace your core and pull the bar straight up with your lats, not your arms. Hansel warns, "Don't bend back too much and don't use momentum." He smiles and tells his companions that the weight is too heavy for them and suggests that they step away for now. With a cry of "Hi up!" Hansel pulls the bar powerfully, his back gleaming with the effort. Suddenly, the stone disc opens like a gate, and the companions decide to go inside. Verdo asks, puzzled, if today isn't Hansel's leg day and if he can work on his back. The companion replies with a smile that Hansel has a completely different endurance than they do. Verdo wonders anxiously how Hansel will catch up with them once he finishes the exercise. The blue satellite freezes in horror, realizing that they might leave Hansel behind. Meanwhile, Hansel continues to deadlift, furiously shouting, 8! After completing 4 sets, Hansel smiles with satisfaction, feeling his muscles burn. The blue satellite screams as it holds a heavy stone disc surrounded by a purple aura. He desperately calls Hansel inside as he continues training, holding the passage open. Hansel praises his companions, noting that their strength has increased significantly. The stone disc is fully raised, revealing a dark passage, and the rope hangs limply. Inside, cute hamster builders are found busily scurrying around the wooden structures. A long corridor with conveyor belts leads to a bright, glowing light ahead. The hamsters jump happily on the red platforms, as if activating some kind of mechanism. In the depths, red-hot furnaces are visible, from which thick smoke is pouring. Before them, an entire industrial complex unfolds, run by diligent hamsters. Line watches this cute and lively picture with delight and shining eyes. Line reaches out to Hansel, exclaiming that she wants to touch him, but he stops her. Hansel, crossing her arms, explains that before going to the gym, a consultation is needed, not just touching. Hansel thoughtfully agrees that yes, you can't just start touching. Suddenly, a chubby white dog with glasses appears, proudly declaring, "I am Behemoth, the spirit king of Gaia." Verdo looks at the dog in surprise, noticing that it is as fat as he is. The hippopotamus dog screams in rage. How dare they compare him to such a worthless thing? Hippopotamus dog threatens to punish them immediately, his eyes sparkling. A laughing black cat in a dressing gown appears from behind the dog, admitting that it was too funny. The black cat introduces the confused dog as Lena, the supreme spirit of Gaia. The black cat, with a sly grin, announces that he is the real Behemoth. The black cat warns that hamsters are also high-class spirits and not just animals. Hansel thoughtfully considers the new information. The hamster, the dog, the cat, all spirits. Behemoth Cat approaches Hansel, acknowledging his strength, and asks about the purpose of his visit. Hansel hopefully asks if the spirits could make exercise equipment for him. Behemoth confidently states that given time and materials, he can create anything. Verdo suddenly intervenes, warning Hansel against making hasty deals. He introduces himself as Count Verdo Coward, landowner of the Kingdom of Verdo, and bows. Verdo politely asks Behemoth to first name the price for their request. Behemoth, stroking his chin, notes Verdo's good manners and ponders payment. The cat explains that the spirits do not need worldly riches. They will take something else. Verdo readily offers to give whatever the spirits desire. Hippopotamus Cat squints slyly at Verdo's generous offer. Behemoth tells of a snake-like monster polluting their lands. He explains that the monster is very strong, and all the spirits sent disappear. Hippopotamus Cat offers a deal. Kill the monster, clear the land, and he will help. Hansel enthusiastically agrees and asks if they will have a guide. Behemoth explains that until now they have been sending middle-class spirits, but now they want to figure it out. Behemoth Cat orders Lena, the supreme spirit, to accompany them. Lena the dog timidly objects that he needs to run this place. Behemoth furiously shouts at Lena, accusing him of idleness and gluttony. The hippopotamus menacingly orders Lena to accompany the group, and the dog cowers in fear. Meanwhile, the purple-haired girl runs through the forest, muttering that she stirred up a beehive. She is surprised to see a whole crowd of pursuers rushing at her from the darkness. Masked figures with guns shout, "It's General Ryan! Grab her!" With a battle cry of, "For Oculus!" the pursuers attack Ryan under the light of the full moon. Ryan deftly dodges, thinking out loud about the intricate connections in ecosystems. She continues running, asking if they know about animals, who are not afraid of bees and at the same time feast on honey, preparing for a counterattack. Ryan delivers a powerful blow, sending several attackers flying. The pursuers in red cloaks fly away with cries of pain from her devastating attack. One of the pursuers shouts the name Ryan in rage. Ryan, surrounded by a glow, unleashes a powerful sword strike on her enemies. She activates a combat skill called Sword Forest. Some insect flies alone in the night sky above the forest. Suddenly, a luminous streak cuts the insect in half. The pursuer in the red hood mutters in bewilderment, "What is this?" His eyes widen in realization. They didn't say she was that strong. A multitude of shining golden swords materialize in the sky above them. The pursuers look up in horror at the threat looming above them. Glittering blades shoot down, raining down upon Ryan's enemies. A powerful pillar of golden light pierces the forest darkness, signaling a strike. Frightened birds soar into the night sky above the disturbed forest. Ryan stands over her fallen enemies, thinking that they were wrong to underestimate her. With a determined look, Ryan decides to teach his student a lesson. Meanwhile, the dog Lena is gnawing on some stone with gusto. Lena explains to Hansel that great spirits like him read the memory of the earth by eating minerals. Lena's eyes widen at the sudden taste or vision. Hansel curiously asks if the dog saw anything special. The dog Lena exclaims in delight that it is incredibly delicious. Lena sheepishly admits that he was joking, and these minerals are too young for memories. The dog Lena commands to bring him ancient minerals pointing to the ground. Hansel clarifies whether they need these particular stones, while the spirits of the land fuss around. The spirits of the earth are struggling to dig up and lift a huge white boulder. Hansel, with his arms crossed, looks at their unsuccessful efforts in confusion. The spirits explain in confusion that they are looking for something to grab onto in order to move the stone. Hansel stops them with a gesture, clearly intending to show them how it should be done. His powerful hand descends onto the smooth surface of a huge stone. With a cry of "Ha!", Hansel grabs the boulder and it begins to crack under his fingers. Straining every muscle, Hansel lifts the giant stone with one hand with incredible ease. The stone crumbles in his mighty grip, revealing its unusual layered structure. Hansel demonstrates to the spirits how to comfortably hold the stone, causing them to be delighted. He then uses the boulder to perform one-arm rows like a dumbbell. Hansel counts the reps, his muscles tense, preparing to switch hands. Meanwhile, another big guy, Blog, approaches an even larger dark stone. Blog prepares for a snatch grip deadlift by gripping a huge boulder. With incredible force, Blog lifts a giant stone over his head. He easily tosses a massive boulder into the air with one hand. The Blog happily announces, "Clean," after completing the exercise. Hansel smiles and praises Blog, noting his greatly improved posture. The Blog confidently states that it is now easy for him, breaking a slight sweat. The spirits of the earth train hard, lifting stones and counting the repetitions. They continue their boulder exercises using different grips and techniques. Lena the dog watches their training with bewilderment, holding her little stone. Lena thinks that the spirits seem to have forgotten his original request. The dog opens his mouth wide, getting ready to eat his small mineral. A sudden flash of light illuminates Lena's eye as he tries the stone. Against a dark background, Lena exclaims enthusiastically, "I see! Woof!" The camera shows a wooden bridge leading to a dark cave entrance by the river. Inside the cave, a masked and goggled figure addresses Mr. Cork, praising his abilities. The speaker mentions the high cost of creating the core, and a cup of red liquid falls to the floor. The figure, in a rage, accuses his interlocutor of using poison in the deal. Mr. Cork, licking his lips, calmly replies that it is not poison but whiskey. Cork, with a cigar and a bottle, declares that there is nothing better than divine alcohol. The speaker with the red eye and glasses convinces Cork to join Oculus for power. The winged character attacks Cork, outraged by his attitude towards his generosity. The attacker's vision suddenly becomes cloudy, and a dizzying effect distorts his face. Cork, drinking from a bottle, corrects that he is an amphibian, and the terms of the deal do not suit him. Cork's minions force a drink into the masked character's mouth. The liquid burns his throat, causing him to have a painful reaction. The masked figure sits, broken, and Cork notes that he is now ready to negotiate. Cork, with a cigar, grins as he announces that they have plenty of booze for the toad. The leader of the Red Army, Cork, surrounded by his amphibious minions, offers to start negotiations. Meanwhile, the dog Lena shouts excitedly, "Found it!" The spirits of the earth are still trying unsuccessfully to lift the stones, ignoring Lena. Lena looks at them with disdain, muttering, "Ha! Worthless creatures of the earth!" One earth spirit notes with admiration how another's back muscles have grown. He proudly replies that it's all thanks to training to the limit, and asks if his interlocutor has gained weight. Spirit, smiling, explains that gaining weight is the best way to build muscle. Suddenly another, more muscular spirit objects, disagreeing with this statement. Surrounded by a red aura, he declares that more important than weight is stimulation. The spirit with a darkened face asks again in bewilderment, "What are you talking about?" Another, smiling and tensing his muscles, objects, "Weight is more important." The first spirit thoughtfully repeats the word stimulation. The second spirit in turn says weight with doubt. Two spirits of the earth stand against each other. Their opinions of weight and stimulation clash. One of them, clenching his fists, suggests, "Since you're so stubborn, let's settle this in battle." The second, taking a fighting stance, replies, "I was going to do that anyway." 3 other spirits watch, one commenting, "Boys, they're fighting. Weight versus stimulation. It's stimulating my pecs." One of the disputants lets out a furious cry, his eyes glowing red. Suddenly, both spirits adopt identical poses, wearing dark glasses as if preparing to perform. One spirit notes, "The weight proponent has larger lats, but the stimulation proponent has better symmetry." The spirit master in a bow tie and glasses loudly announces, "First pose." The opponents simultaneously demonstrate the double biceps from the front, flexing their muscles. The leading spirit, showing 2 fingers, enthusiastically shouts, "Second pose!" Both spirits adopt a dramatic latissimus dorsi in front pose. Hansel suddenly appears, asking in confusion, "What are you guys doing here?" The host spirit, dropping his glasses in surprise, exclaims, "Mr. Hansel!" Hansel asks with a serious expression, "Did you just mention the rectus abdominis?" An angry Hansel yells that instead of arguing about weight and stimulation, they need to train more and rest. One of the spirits sadly admits that they really want to find out what is more important. The spirits ask Hansel what is more important, stimulation or weight. Hansel asks a counter question in profile. "Dumbbells or a barbell, which is more important?" Showing off his powerful leg, he continues, "Hamstring or quadriceps?" Hansel points to her chest and demands an answer. "Trapezoid or pectoralis major?" One spirit is puzzled, and the bearded man nearby notices the strangeness of Hansel's comparisons. The spirit hisses at the bearded man, reminding him that Mr. Hansel has excellent hearing. The spirit's face is distorted by mental strain and confusion. Hansel pats the spirit on the shoulder encouragingly. "No need to strain yourself so much." Smiling and flexing his muscles, Hansel declares, "You can feel stimulation by increasing weight." The spirit's eyes fill with tears of admiration. "Mr. Hansel!" On this day, the spirits once again felt an important truth with their whole bodies. Hansel offers with a wide smile, "Let's pretend there was no training and start over." The spirits are sure that Hansel will definitely help them change even more. The crowd of spirits roars with delight. "Yes, sir, forward, ready for new achievements." Meanwhile, a blue slug-like creature crunches as it eats the stone. Lena is perplexed, looking at the training spirits. What about the mission? Suddenly a girl appears, confident. Would anyone really fall for such a slow attack? A muscular guy with a drop of sweat thoughtfully looks at his palm. Clenching his fist, he muses, "I thought I've become stronger." As he walks through the forest, he remembers Hansel's advice, strengthen synergistic muscles to become stronger. The guy makes his way through the thickets, assuming that what he is looking for is somewhere nearby. He searches intently, a bead of sweat running down his face. Suddenly he finds a green slug and decides to make an expander out of it. The guy jumps and pounces on the slug, shouting, "Rope!" With a determined look, he performs a crossover exercise using the elastic body of a slug. Suddenly he notices a figure on the tree and asks in surprise who it is. An elegant frog sits on a branch with a bag containing another slug and apologizes, saying that she needs this slug for alcohol. The frog, with a sly squint, asks why the man needs a slug, since he doesn't look like a magician. The boy sheepishly admits that he wanted to use the slug to become stronger. The frog offers help from her boss, who, according to her, is very knowledgeable about this, which surprises the guy. The frog, with a sly smile, invites the guy to meet her boss. The guy, confused, replies that he already has a mentor. The next moment, he is already happily drinking a strange drink from a wooden mug. The other frogs are having fun around him, praising his drinking skills, even though he admits that this is his first time drinking. Deeply flushed and hiccuping, the boy mutters when he will finally become strong. The main frog with a monocle shouts enthusiastically that he is already getting stronger, specifying that he gets stronger, in drinking, as long as the guy keeps drinking. The guy, unable to bear it, passes out right there on the counter, muttering, "I can't." The boss frog, wearing a hat and a monocle, calmly holds a bottle and looks at him. With a wide grin, the boss remarks that their alcohol is in fact very expensive. The guy comes to, feeling terrible thirst. Opening his eyes with difficulty, he mutters, "Where am I?" A creepy cave hung with cocoons appears before him, and his head splits with pain. He tries to escape from the viscous green liquid that has enveloped him. But the mucus is too elastic and sticky, preventing him from freeing himself. Someone's voice advises the newcomer not to waste his energy, causing the guy to be confused. The lizard men boss appears, explaining that this is toad poison, a toad's larder from which there is no escape. The lizard angrily yells at the guy not to ignore him. Suddenly calming down, the lizard chuckles that it's stupid to be angry, since he's going to die soon anyway. The guy curiously asks why they don't just kill them right away. The lizard explains that they are being kept here to create a dungeon. The guy asks again in bewilderment, "A dungeon?" An image of a tower appears before them, the land of darkness, from where monsters endlessly appear. However, the lizard clarifies that the endless creation of monsters is actually impossible. The main principle of the dungeon is the theft and use of the energy of living beings. Therefore, the core is important for the dungeon, where the energy is compressed and stored. That's why the amphibians stored living creatures. They would become energy for the dungeon. The guy asks hopefully if there is a way to get out of here. The lizard, a fellow prisoner, replies gloomily, "As you can see, no." He advises not to even think about resistance. The more movements, the faster the energy will run out. The boy with his eyes closed thinks that all this happened because of his weakness. He mumbles an apology to everyone, especially Hansel. Upon hearing the name Hansel, the lizard suddenly perks up, asking if this is the same you Hansel from Ali Mine. The guy confirms in surprise, not understanding how the lizard knows this name. Suddenly, the lizard begins to thrash around in the slime in panic, desperately screaming that it needs to get out. The guy wonders why he is doing this, because it will only make him die faster. The lizard continues to scream shrilly, its mouth wide open in horror. A moment pops into his memory where Hansel makes him do push-ups. Hansel announces the start of a new series of push-ups with a devilish smile, shocking the lizard. The lizard screams that he would rather die right now than go through this hell again. Hansel asks with a serious expression where the blog is. They tell him that Blog went out to hunt a slug because he forgot his expander. Hansel is surprised because Blog could have asked him for an expander. He has a spare one. A girl from the group notices with concern that the Blog has been gone for a suspiciously long time. Hansel smiles and assures that Blog will be fine. He is strong enough. An elderly companion warns Hansel that they are in enemy territory and that he cannot relax. Suddenly, Hansel lifts a huge boulder, shocking his companion. Hansel grins and suggests that his companion do 100 squats if he doesn't want to relax. The elderly man is horrified, tears streaming down his face at the suggestion. A small glowing creature announces to the group that their target is a toad named Quark, who is building a dungeon here. The little creature advises not to focus on one area, so as not to help the enemy. Hansel thoughtfully recalls that frog legs are rich in protein and good for muscles. His muscle men are wild with delight at the news about the benefits of frog meat for muscle growth. A crowd of musclemen surround the glowing creature, demanding to know where this protein source is. The creature admits that it does not know the exact location, but Quark lives somewhere in a cave. The jocks suggest splitting up and signaling with their pectoral muscles if they find the toad first. Hansel sighs, admitting that he doesn't like long cardio workouts. An elderly companion suddenly volunteers to search, declaring that this is his specialty. Trembling all over, the old man begs to be allowed to take up the search. Hansel asks him with a smile if he has finished his 100 squats. The elderly companion answers Hansel with a strained smile. No. Hansel, smiling broadly, calmly suggests, then finish them first. The old man, shedding tears of despair, meekly agrees. Okay. Meanwhile, a toad in a hat with a large bag on his back sings merrily as he walks along a dark tunnel. The toad porter approaches a huge vat where he is met by another toad in a vest. The toad boss sternly addresses his subordinate. Toad, to which the latter replies, Yes, sir. The boss points to a glowing sphere that looks like a mini galaxy and orders, Dive inside. The toad in the hat grins maliciously, holding a glowing bag and promises its contents a quick meeting with friends. He throws the bag into the vat, intending for its contents to become good food for the dungeon. At this time, the lizard in the cocoon senses with horror someone's approach, muttering, It's here, the Reaper of Death. Creepy larvae with glowing red eyes crawl out of the darkness. The vile creatures are getting closer and closer to the motionless captives in the cocoons. One of the larvae opens its mouth wide, showing sharp teeth ready to attack. The monster bites into the guy's leg, and he just watches helplessly. Meanwhile, by the fire, one of the jocks is worried that Blog left without a protein chicken breast. Hansel chews the meat with a smile, assuring that Blog will be fine because his body is blessed. The jock asks in surprise if this means that the Blog was born strong. Hansel explains that Blog has the worst sense of taste, to which the other person remarks that this is bad. Hansel adds with a grin that the lack of taste means that Blog is not a picky eater. Back to the guy. He screams in pain and horror as the larva continues to devour him. The Blog is furiously breaking through the ground, screaming, "Blog can't eat except his parents." Blog's face is distorted into a grimace, mucus dripping from it.